Guys, what are you talking about? Why are you guys talking about flopping so much? Hmm? We grippin'. Okay. You are not live yet, streamer. Mind your own business and let the chatters chat. What? What, you guys think you fucking run this shit? You all think you fucking run this shit before I get on the screen? Dude, at least YouTube chat knows I'm in charge. He would never say hello to YouTube first. What? YouTube chat still frozen from last stream? No, I see them all the time. Guys, YouTube likes to... YouTube has... Is it called little brother syndrome? Or little... Like youngest child... Well, what's the one where like people just feel like... It's like an under... You guys know how, like, when Final Fantasy popped off, they, like, extra popped off because they felt like they were the underdogs for so long, and they were, like, really milking not being the underdogs for a short amount of time? What is that called? I don't know what that's called, but that's what YouTube chat has. YouTube chat is, like, fucking waiting for their day, bro. Max, that was a crazy video you posted in the Discord. Yeah, dude, I'm surprised more people aren't talking about that. Have you guys seen that MrBeast video? It's like an hour long, and it's like, I worked with MrBeast or whatever. It got shadow banned on YouTube, so it's kind of hard to find. But it's like pretty tough. It's pretty... That's rough, yeah. Watch it? Nah, it's not a stream watch, I don't think. Basically, just someone who worked with MrBeast, didn't offer any opinions. They just gave you, like, straight facts and outed all of the videos as fake. Not that that really matters, but it's like he's in a ton of interviews saying that our videos aren't faked, which is just, like, I mean, blatantly lying after that. It doesn't really matter. I think people are coming for that dude for other reasons right now, too. I don't know. But it was a crazy video. Max, I found you on the stream. All right, well, try to find me now. And I'm different. Look at that. Now I'm hidden again. Holy shit. Actually, yeah, it's super easy to find me on Tettles. You gotta find somewhere with a similar background. Where's the best background to hide on this screen? Is it in JB's picture? JB's picture is pretty solid. You'd have to, like, double take that. I'm also wearing a very bright white shirt. Guys, we did a potty cast the other day with Tettles and Megaset and all of them. Actually, a lot of you guys probably watched it on stream from last week. But dude, Megaset has some very devout fans in the YouTube comments. Well, we've noticed that, like, the first time we found that the people yearn for the healers. Like, the first time Growl was on there, everyone was like, bring Growl every time. Oh my god, we need a healer perspective. Yes! And then Growl did his whole mole people bit, and now the people are mad at him again, but... And then Megaset came on, and they're like, oh my god, yes, a healer, yes. I mean, Megaset was also great. She's a good addition. Basically, healers are on a generational run right now with PR is what I'm trying to say. Dude, there was some really funny YouTube comments on that. I actually want to show those. Let's see. Let's find them. Potty C YouTube. Dude, the Potty C's are actually doing so many viewers, by the way. It is turbo successful. Here we go. Let's find some of the comments here. Oh, yeah. Also, I don't know. This is a deep cut of people who watch the Potty C, but shout out everyone who realized that the picture that Franck decided to use of a still of Dratnos for this entire episode was the one when he forgot to hit record. Like, this is the moment in that one episode when we realized we had been filming a podcast for 45 minutes and Dratnos realized that he had not recorded the whole thing. And it's such a fucking perfect expression of, like, confusion and sadness at the same time. It's so good, that fucking picture. So anyways, Franck choosing to use that as the only time Dratnos has a still picture on this podcast was fucking hilarious. Just such the Franck and Dratnos beef is so deep. I wish I was more excited for the War Within. Bro, I'm telling you, man, there's not a lot of... I mean, they haven't really started, like, giga marketing yet. They made their, like, first, like, major tweet about it the other day. But like you can tell as like even a streamer, like my overall viewership, like I guess the best way I would describe it is like my viewership that watches me no matter what I do. Every streamer has like a different subset of viewers. You have viewers that are going to watch you literally do anything, and then you have viewers that are going to watch you do literally anything as long as it's within the category of your main game. And then there are a large, potentially large majority of people that actually watch you purely content-based. Like during the race, they're going to watch, but maybe not during other times. During a class talk of their specific class, maybe they'll show up. Maybe a undercover, they're going to show up, but it's like more content-specific, right? So my viewership baseline has grown since last beta, like significantly. Like I have thousands more, like more than 1,000 more people that are going to watch me literally no matter what since then. But so you can use the rest of your viewership to gauge like interest in the game you play, right? So like 4 or 5K plus of my viewership can fluctuate based on how excited people are for an upcoming patch. Like for example, if people right now were fiending for the War Within, my viewers would be higher. So Dragonflight beta, when I did a class talk, I'd get like 7K viewers. When I do them this time, it's going to get like 4K viewers, right? Almost half the viewership. And that's not because my stream is smaller. My stream is actually bigger than it was then. So it's an even worse effect of like just the hype just really isn't there. Stream sucks, stay small. What the fuck? I don't really know what it is, but what is it? Hero talents don't change. Fuck all is why. The talent trees were huge changes. I mean, even a lot of people's talent trees are majorly different. And also, I feel like people would get out of the bed for the theme of hero talents, but really, maybe it's because beta actually has full access to people as well. Like, if you really wanted to see beta, I mean, you've been doing less of that, so people aren't expecting it. Yeah, I strongly believe that the viewership wouldn't majorly change if I was doing them consistently, to be honest with you. What theme? Come on, you don't think some of the hero talents have sick theme? Come on now. If you want big hype, you need big changes. I guess that is a good point. Like, Dragonflight was big changes in that they weren't changing a lot, you know? Like, their whole bit was they were working on the base expansion. And now that because it's like they're kind of doing that again, it's like, okay. Also, like, Dragonflight had, still within a 2-year stretch, had, like, a lot of the initial Shadowlands hype. So, a lot of people that played Shadowlands actually don't have a really huge negative opinion of it. The people who really hate Shadowlands are the people who like play WoW all the time. But like, you know how Shadowlands got a big infusion of normies? A lot of people play the beginning of an expansion and then they stop. So I think there's a lot of people who like played the beginning of Shadowlands. Even though you couldn't swap covenants, it still was like a really good season, right? Like the Mythic Plus was new. It wasn't like you had been doing it for the whole expansion at that point. It had one of the best raids of all time, right? People like positively enjoyed Shadowlands Season 1, even though you couldn't swap covenants. Like it was I would think generally considered a success, right? And then people quit like they do in most expansions. They didn't get to see Season 2, which was horrible. And then like when Dragonflight beta was announced, it was still within like a year and a half from when they played and loved Shadowlands Season 1. So I think they were just super interested in Dragonflight. And I don't think Dragonflight gripped people as much as the beginning of Shadowlands did. It was also trying to do a lot less. It also wasn't in the pandemic. So like, I guess like now that we're in the War Within beta, a theory is like, you know, that big surge of players in the pandemic was like so long ago that they're not sitting around waiting for beta news and stuff like that. Is Meg really... Why do y'all say shit like that? Everyone on who's ever been on my stream is super hot and handsome and attractive. And everyone in chat. What is it? The Panny D was not a fun time? Wait, what are you saying? The pandemic? The Panny D? That is extremely stupid. It took me a second there. I've never heard anyone say that before, but never say that again. Nah, that goes hard. It does not go hard. Yeah, so Today we're gonna do Windwalker. I'm gonna try to remember my like little setup I had for it. So I decided, you know, guys, I was telling you like what I was going to do for like class talks, and then I was like, I don't know which classes I really want to do. Like, I don't want to talk to mages. Like, I don't really care. So I think what I'm gonna do is just do the class talks for the classes that I like, and then if that goes really well, we just might do more of them. Like, I don't know. Like, it's my stream. I can do whatever the fuck I want. So I'm more likely to not only create interesting content, but do class talks for classes I actually appreciate. So we'll probably do like Windwalker, Enhance, and then throw Ellie in there. Probably not do Demon Hunter because like I'm not even gonna play Demon Hunter and I don't think anything's changed. It would just be the most depressing like 30 minutes of your life. Just be people being upset. I guess Rhett would be kind of interesting. Just like stuff that I like playing. I don't know. Stuff that I would be interested in listening to. Like honestly, guys, if I brought a bunch of warlocks on my stream, I wouldn't even, you'd be able to tell I'd be asking these questions and I'd be like, all right, so like, yeah, what would you do here? And they'd like give me some really good answer and I wouldn't identify with any of it. And I'd just be like, yeah, man. Woo. What is it? Havoc just got a massive buff, didn't they? You know, that's a really good point you bring up. People are really upset with Havoc because of fun, mainly. Like, there's probably some people that are upset about their tuning, but, like, I think really anyone who has a brain is not super concerned about tuning right now because it's a complete meme. Still, although every week that goes by, it becomes less and less of a meme and more reality, but I would just like to think that a lot of it is still a meme. But you are right, like, people in this game are so number-brained that you could hate the playstyle and the design, and you can feel left out with all the changes everyone got. But as long as they're like OP in Mythic Plus or in Raid in Season 1, or they're wanted, you know, you get invited to groups. I mean, people are just going to be fine, just like they are in a normal season. Turns out that's really actually what almost everyone cares about, at least the people who are allowed. What is it? You should just bring in Jack, Yummy TV, and JB and just do all healers. They are good content. They are great content. Doing a tank one like that and a healer one are usually always like a super banger. And it makes the class Discord people mad. It like makes all the like self-important class Discord admins of specific tanks and healers like it makes their blood boil, and that makes my day. All right. What is pretty much? Let's see. Does Reptar and Ella still like the toys you gave them? Yeah, I think Ella had. I don't know if she has it right now. She just had her duck. What is it, Max? Honestly, I respect how you manage the stream. Every other WoW channel is just meta cooked chatters the whole time asking about meta when no one knows anything. That's probably not everyone's channel. But yeah, I mean, I don't think those people want to watch me because I think a lot of those people look for a specific answer and I don't give them what they want. Like, they're like, what is the best? And then I'm like, and then I go into some incoherent 3-minute ramble about the nuances of what makes things good or bad and why that's good for game design. And they immediately tune out because they just want me to tell them if their class is the best. And then and they're just not getting what they want from me, right? Like, they can go into anyone else's stream and be like, is this going to be good? And it's like, yeah. And then they're like, fuck yeah, this is what I want. I think those people fucking don't like my shit at all. Those people are trying to grow their stream and brand. Max doesn't give a fuck. Dude, I really don't. I think I should, too. Like, dude, if there was someone giving me, like, business advice and they just see me randomly turn my stream off after like 2 hours and stream like 3 or 4 days a week, they'd probably be like begging me to make like TikToks and shorts and like do all this stuff that'll like giga grow your YouTube channel and stream, and I just can't be bothered, man. That actually has to be so frustrating if you work for me and like actually want me to succeed. But I don't know, man. I feel like my content would suck if I did all that, and I don't want to do it. That's also the main part. Is that why you have Franck? Yeah, dude, Franck hates my guts. Franck's just sitting there fucking all day just waiting to edit stuff, and I just don't do anything. All right, one second. I gotta get my dog her toy. Ella left her duck in the other room. Ella loves that duck. She instantly stole it from Reptar. Look at her. She fucking loves that thing. Alright. What is it? Franck works for you but doesn't want you to succeed? That's what I'm saying. Oh, anyways, the reason I pulled up this video is someone made some really funny comment on Growl's delve thing. They were like... something like, I'm actually a subterranean creature that enjoys delves. And then he went on to make his point after that, and I just thought that initial preface of that statement was really fucking funny. Where is it, man? I know I saw it. Come on. Oh, they're all Megaset comments, which is based, but... Come on, where's the person that said that shit? I fucking saw this. Damn it. Dude, did I make this up? I swear someone said some shit like that. Fuck. Alright, it's gone. I made it up, I guess. What was the comment? I'll find. It's basically someone talking about Growl's rant on... Okay, so where's Growl's rant? Here.
Guy in your chat.
What?
His name is S7 Weed. He says, like, this is what everybody. This is what everybody thinks right now who's disagreeing with me.
I'll
right?
take him out.
He says, Growl forgets that 95% of people who play WoW don't do any M+ or any raids higher than LFR.
That's not true.
That's just a completely made like.
Yeah, that's not even close.
Literally, the people who disagree with me just think there's this race of mole people that play WoW and just want to do this mind-numbing, drooling content that just exists underground that have been in here with all the Dark Iron Dwarves or what. Like, all right, I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all the Delve mains, the future Delve mains that I've insulted. I hope that it's fun for you. I'm trying to preach for Blizzard to make better solo content. I'm not trying to shit on...
Okay, whatever. Anyways, it was funny as fuck. And then someone basically tried to give their takes on delves, and they acknowledged before the delve that they are a subterranean creature that enjoys delves, and it was funny. You can't control F, by the way. Control F in comments. Subterranean. Oh, fuck, it does work. Okay, but usually it doesn't. I scrolled past it. That's why it shows up. If it's like at the very bottom and you control F, it hasn't loaded like... Okay, let's say there's 1,000 comments. If you were to open the YouTube video, go to the comments and control F something. If it's not in the first like 30 comments, it won't show up because you haven't scrolled down far enough to load the new ones. But I did actually scroll past it, so it helped me. Stop yapping, start reading. Here we go. Okay, whatever. Going to put this here. I am a subterranean human that wants to do delves so I can brainlessly clear a big world quest as a bear. They're just putting it out there. I don't know. It just doesn't sound fun, man. I am not a delve hater. I am just a... If people play the expansion and they're like playing it and they're tweeting and shit like, guys, one thing about the War Within that's amazing is delves. It would just blow my fucking mind. I just can't... While I acknowledge that I am not the target audience for delves, and my opinion should be taken with a major grain of salt, I'm still allowed to have one, and that opinion is I just don't think there's enough cool and unique about it for people to actually log on and want to do it, other than it just being something to do. That's all. Like, I think the thing that has potential is the 13th delve, the seasonal, like, delve solo boss fight thing. After you complete all the delves on the highest tier. And I don't even mean that for a high level player. I actually foresee that content is actually one-shottable by good players. Like, really good players, but I could see it as, like, it's like similar to Mage Tower, right? Where it'll be a challenge for most people to, like, go to it. I could see that being something that people really, really like. Because there has to be, like, some, as much as, like, people get all, like, weird about, like, difficulty in games, there has to be some level of challenge for people to truly enjoy something. Like most things in any game that's, like, actually zero thinking, zero difficulty, those things are, like, really, like, they can be cool and fun, but, like, for them to be, like, something that people remember. If you talk about things that people fondly remember from WoW, they almost all have some level of difficulty to them, right? There has to be something to, like... It's like Elden Ring, right? Like, if Elden Ring, if every single boss was a joke and it still had all the same lore and visuals, like, people would not look at the game the same way. I know it's kind of a weird argument because, like, kind of the purpose of Souls games with 10 years of built-in fandom before Elden Ring or more is, like, the bit is that there are hard boss fights, but... You know what I mean? Like, there has to be some level of that. What is it? There's a decent study on this being on the line where skill is roughly equal to the challenge. What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate more on what you... Dude, look at me. I said elaborate. I'm so smart. Holy shit. What is it? Since Max plays WoW for like 10 hours every 4 months, does that make him a casual? Shouldn't he be enjoying delves like some kind of Dark Iron mole man? I guess, like, well, I mean, I definitely played the game hella casually in Season 4. I mean, I didn't even play the game. I literally didn't play WoW this season. First season in my entire history of playing WoW since Cataclysm, where I didn't play. But I think I play most... It's weird, like... World first rating, and this has been this way for like 10 years, even longer than 10 years. Like, you actually play the game more casually than most people, even though I think the assumption is that you play it super hardcore. Like, since the beginning of time, Race World first people clear these raids in 1 to 2 weeks, and then they raid log. A lot of people consider raid logging casual, but you can only do that by being super sweaty, you know? By being super sweaty and being good enough and putting in literally all day, every day hours for 2 weeks. Basically, we play like 2 months of WoW in 2 weeks and then play other games for the longest time, which is, like, in its own way is very casual. Like, there are people who play more... Like, I would say the average WoW player plays significantly more during a season than a Race World First Raider does. We just do all of it early and then stop. Max, I think the reason why the War Within isn't hyped is that back when Borrowed Power was a thing, there was always a lot of new content. However, in the expansions of Dragonflight and the War Within, the amount of new content introduced is limited because Borrowed Power is no longer a thing. Well, then why was Dragonflight so hype at the beginning? Right? And it was, by the way. Like, it was super, super hype. Like, the viewership of anything surrounding Dragonflight was massive. Was it the talents, like the new talent loadout being the major thing? Yeah, because, like, in a way, that kind of seemed like Borrowed Power, right? Like, when you go into a new expansion, you're like, okay, we're getting artifact weapons, literal Borrowed Power. Seeing new talent trees kind of seems like that until you realize it's staying, right? Like, there's nothing different about artifact weapons in the new talent tree as systems, other than one of them goes away and the other one doesn't, and you don't realize that until it doesn't go away, even if it's announced to do that. Madge. Oh, someone said Borrowed Power. I'm fucking mad. And then this is when people try to get super clever and they're like, sir, don't you know that all gear is Borrowed Power? Oh, I love everything. I just fucking love it. I love everything. I miss the Borrowed Powers like corruption. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe that's a good take. Does WoW, if the War Within, like, doesn't do a lot for sub numbers, which I actually don't know how that'll be. Like, I thought the Dragonflight sub numbers would be pretty bad, but then, like, Dragonflight showed better sub retention than, like, almost every other expansion. But there was so many parts of that, right? Like, the trading post was a huge part of that. more consistent content being released was a huge part of that. Like Remix and Plunderstorm were a big part of that. Like them just doing new things every month, right? Where they didn't usually used to do that. I wonder how that'll actually be. But if let's just say the War Within generates very little hype, which again is so surprising to me because the War Within at BlizzCon was like the biggest Rockstar announcement ever. Like for the first time in years, WoW was clearly the main event at BlizzCon, and it's like that hype just hasn't transferred at all. But let's just say the expansion doesn't have a lot of hype. Do you think they go back to Borrowed Power? I could see them kind of doing that. Like, really, honestly, WoW has always existed in cycles. Like, you have cycles where, like, every class has a raid buff, and then they remove all raid buffs, and they bring it back. They've done that, like, 2 or 3 full times now. I guess they've only really delved into Borrowed Power once in Legion, and then stopped at the end of Shadowlands. But, like, maybe they could bring that back. The moment I log into my character, the biggest feature Warbands doesn't even do anything. I mean, it should. I mean, you are right, though. Like, there's nothing about Warbands. Like, I think Warbands is all theory. Like, Warbands theoretically should just make your account feel more whole. And it should make alt playing and just general account management significantly easier. But that most of that is in theory. Like, a lot of the ways that that could apply to you as far as gear trading, as far as like crest trading, crest sharing, all of that is like, this could be really cool, but there isn't like concrete ways that that's been announced and like how that's going to work yet. That is like clearly a significant upgrade, right? So while I think that they'll probably figure that out, because like just the baseline system of warbands existing probably makes it really easy to do stuff like that. But I just don't know of any yet. Oh, Madge. I said system, Madge. Sorry. Account-wide. But, I mean, Warband should be the new account-wide. Warband should make you all glad because it makes everything account-wide. Or it should, right? What is it? Feels like a patch feature, not an expansion feature. Yeah, I guess the one thing is delves. Like, delves, I guess, are supposed to... The thing that's missing is delves, right? Like, delves is supposed to be this... like, expansion... The guys, like... Think about it like this. When they announced Mythic Plus in Legion, there was hype around it, but like it clearly exceeded all expectations. Like when Blizzard is announcing delves, they kind of feel like they're announcing Mythic Plus. They're announcing like a new game mode. Right? Obviously, does anyone here think that delves will have the same impact on the game that Mythic Plus will have? No, right? Like no one thinks that, but let's say it does for a large majority of players. So it's just possible like that, you know, Blizzard could be looking at it like that. Like that's where the hype is supposed to be. When they pitched this to the executives, that was the play, right? And it just hasn't hit. What is it? They seem very boring, so kinda. See, that's the thing, like oh, that's funny. I don't know, like I feel like we would need that, or I mean, I still think the hero talents are gonna do well. Like I think hero talents are gonna get people to log in, but like hoping people log in and then get gripped by it is hard. Like you kind of just want swarms of people. Also, does the first raid seem really exciting? Like, I think Castle Nathria, before you even did it, like, the vibe of what it looked like and the whole idea, before you even did the raid, the vibe did so much. Like, what's the vibe of the new raid? It's like, I don't know, like spiders and shit. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching. Vibe is ghee. Dude, fucking facts. What about the big bad of the expansion? The girl. Don't you think she has more motion than the Dragonflight? Who were even the bad guys in Dragonflight? Wasn't it like the 3 dudes? But we only fought like two of them, maybe 3. I don't know. I don't know exactly how many. But like that wasn't even announced at the beginning of the expansion. Dude, was there any known big bad guys at the beginning of Dragonflight? That didn't even matter. Razagath, that was the first boss, so yeah. Paid to play the game but doesn't know the bad guy. Bro, it would blow your mind how little I know about the lore of this game. I've never cared. Also, if we're being honest, I think most people stopped caring after Lich King. Max, name the big bad of the past 5 expansions, please. Alright, this is a joke. Let's do this. Bad guy of the last 5 X-Packs. Wait, so what is 5 even? So the War Within, Dragonflight, Shadowlands, BFA, and Legion. Oh shit, I'm just realizing that I don't actually know. Dragonflight can be excluded. Alright, so WAD. I mean, I'm inclined to... I don't know the answer to any of these, so I'm inclined to just say the last boss. But are you kind of saying, like, before you went in the expansion, who you thought was the big bad guy? Okay, so Cataclysm was Deathwing. We knew that. But wait, what was Mop? I mean, Mop... The last boss of Mop was Garrosh, but, like... Does that mean he was the big bad guy? This is not going well. I don't know the answer to this. I'm just going to say the last boss. I'm going to see how many I get right. Garrosh, definitely the bad guy of Mop. Oh, shit. We're talking about what? I mean, that's got to be Archimonde. I mean, he was behind it all. In Legion, Argus. I mean, he fucking put everything in motion. In BFA, it was the Alliance. Fuck them. And then Shadowlands was the jailer. He was fucking pulling. He was the puppeteer. That's canon. And then the War Within, the... Oh, no. Well, Xalatath isn't the big bad of the... I mean, Xalatath isn't going to be the end boss of this expansion. But, like, she is the big bad, though. Like... Right? Like, look at the fucking... Here, Warcraft. Warcraft, the War Within official cinematic. It has her face all over it. Okay, there is a lot of spite. Okay, so maybe it's the big-ass spider. Maybe the War Within... Okay, so you're saying Midnight is gonna be Shadow Girl, but the War Within is probably the... giant ass spider, but that's the first boss we kill. Max Xalatath is actually helping us at the end. She's actually good. Similar to Jaina and Razagath. All part of one big dragon family. Can we swap the topic? This is hurting my head. All right, guys, let's talk about Windwalkers. Woo! Wait, okay, so we do need to kind of give some kind of... So we're going to do the grading thing again. I like that as a idea. Let's see. If you're a Blizdev for a week and you can change or add anything to your class, what would you do? Change the talent trees, hero talents, positive and negative changes from Dragonflight. Okay, when I started this with the DKs, I feel like when you're saying positive and negative changes from Dragonflight as a general overview, you already start talking about the hero talents and the trees. And I just feel like that is super basic. And you kind of go over the same thing twice. That's the only thing. I just don't really know where to start from this. I guess you could just ask... I don't know. We'll figure that out. You know shit is getting real when Notepad is up? That would mean shit's getting real 100% of the time in my stream because I always have Notepad up. Please make the font bigger. All right, fuck you. Didn't mean that. You zoomed in, you didn't make the font bigger. I mean, isn't that the same thing? Absolutely not. What do you mean? If you're not sending someone else the document and all we are doing is looking at it on stream, isn't zooming in and increasing the font size actually the same thing? I'm not going crazy, right? It is. You guys are... It's not the same. It is the same. What the font does, making the font bigger makes the font bigger on my screen. And zooming in keeps the same font but makes the font bigger on my screen. It's the same thing. Like if I sent this to someone in a... like in an email or something and I zoomed in, like obviously it wouldn't increase the font size for them, but I'm not doing that. Max, did you see that Tally did a tier list of all your tier lists? Nah. What does that even mean? I haven't done a tier list in 6 months. Did I miss Windwalker talk? Nah, probably soon. Dude, Reptar looks so guilty right now. He's laying down, but he's like side-eyeing me. Oh, he sees me. Alright, we'll call the Windwalkers in a second. We're gonna say hi to Rep, though. Rep. Rep. Come on. Oh, say hi to all the people. Oh my god. Oh my... Oh, he's so tired. Hey, buddy. Dude, Reptar's such a fucking good boy. You guys have any good boys at your house? Hi, little Rep. Hi, little Rep. You got good girls, too? Yeah, same thing. He's so tiny. I mean, he's like 40 pounds. He just looks tiny because the other dogs are massive. Did you see the F1 drama? Let me Google it. F1 drama. F1 results today. Late disqualification drama. Hamilton win as Red Bull thrashed in dramatic battle. What the fuck? Dude, I don't even know what the fuck's going on here. I don't know anything about first place driver got DQ'd. Okay. Yeah, have you guys been watching the Olympics at all? I thought the opening ceremony was sick. I watched the US take gold yesterday, which is pretty cool. Dude, I really wish you could co-stream the Olympics. I wish you could just like co-stream the Olympic on Twitch. That would feed families. Well, specifically my fam. It would feed my family. I would do that all day. That would be so fun. Some people are doing it. I mean, if people are doing it, I would imagine that they are getting in deep trouble because like NBC is like the most copyrighted shit ever. Like if like I remember one time I watched a like like a minute of an SNL sketch, and it just got, it literally bricked my whole shit. Like, it was great. Like, they do not fuck around. I'm pretty sure the Olympics itself actually sends, like, cease and desist and shit. What is it? Live viewing and co-streaming are not the same thing? Oh, like, there are people, like, watching it, but they're not showing the audio or the visuals, and they're just, like, watching together as a chat? Oh, like that. Okay, that's trash, though. Like, that is infinitely worse. Like, that's infinitely worse. I don't think... Like, that is, like, 2 out of 10 content compared to co-streaming. Dude, does anyone... This feels like a fever dream. Does anyone else remember... It was, like, XQC or Aiden Ross or something. But didn't someone co-stream the Super Bowl on Kick? Like, I swear that fucking happened. Which is, like... I can't believe that happened. Like, how did he not get sued? What is it? Not co-stream? He just streamed it? Isn't that what that means? What is it? There are some of them with thousands of viewers for days. I think you can get the permissions. I don't think so. Like, I find it really unlikely. So, for example, what would actually be worth it is if someone gave you a fair deal for your channel to co-stream the Olympics. It would actually be a good deal for the Olympics, and it would spread awareness and get extra viewership. And it would be great for the streamer. It would just be good for both people. This is also true of, like, pretty much all network television, where co-streaming would boost viewership for those companies, and it would gain them value. The problem is the suit and tie corporations of, like, capitalist companies in America is they view streaming, like, they view you streaming something as, like, the same thing as NBC broadcasting it on cable. So, like, they're going to unironically ask you for millions of dollars to be able to do it, even though it's just a totally different market. But they just don't understand it. Like, do you guys remember the whole, like DMCA thing? Like, from years back when, like, everyone's clips got nuked and shit like that, where everyone deleted all their content because they didn't want to get strikes on their channel and lose their job. Like, that was purely because, like, the music industry and copyright law doesn't see your stream, and I'm not making this up. Maybe this was changed since then, but your stream is not viewed any differently than if, like, ESPN went live on SportsCenter and played some artist's music without buying the rights for it. That would be unheard of, right? Because in that industry, that's what you do. But the law basically implies that you streaming, playing video games, and just playing music on your Spotify that you like listening to, that you listen to every day on your stream, is the same as, like, ESPN not buying your rights to play something on SportsCenter. It's just, like, old caveman-ass laws that haven't been changed, right? As far as I can tell, the co-streaming and streaming things is the exact same thing, where it's just, like, a bunch of old people and the laws haven't been amended to include streaming yet, which is bad for those industries, by the way. I think Twitch, specifically, you could allow co-streaming of pretty much any major show or sporting event, and I think it would increase the viewership and the reach like almost nothing else can. And I think that streamers, obviously I'm a little biased, but I think streamers are of immense value to these companies, and they have not realized it yet. Max, did you see how the opening ceremony mocked the Last Supper? No, but I did see on Twitter, because my Twitter has the most cursed shit of all time. Even though I know that For You is cursed, I still just lock into it every single time. I saw a bunch of, like, fucking Christian people in America calling it devilish, like the devil was involved in the opening ceremony, which I thought was pretty fucking funny. But also, I could be wrong about this. Not to go super deep into religion, but isn't the painting of the Last Supper, that's not canon, right? Like, that's it's just a painting of like, I guess, a depiction of that event. Like, it's not something that actually happened. Or that it's like, or fan art, I guess. Yeah, The Last Supper. It's fan art. Holy shit. But also, let me just point out that, you know, if that like affects your beliefs or whatever, if you believe whatever, I'm cool with that, right? It doesn't bother me. I respect you. But yeah, I did find a lot of the outcry to that being very interesting. Although I don't even know why I have to. By the way, I'm not religious at all. Just pointing that out. Because I, you know, I always keep it a buck with you guys, and I don't think if any of you guys are religious, that's a bad thing. But I like how I always give that disclaimer because I doubt a lot of Twitch viewers are religious, like very religious, especially in America. Some other countries are certainly much more religious than America is, but like I like how I have to put some kind of disclaimer. I bet like 90% of you aren't. Like I can't imagine someone like going to like you know, some like really devout religious thing, like either daily mass or something like that, or daily service, and then they just like leave that and then they immediately pop open my stream. Like that idea to me is just so funny and like not real. But obviously I'm sure a lot of you maybe are close to that, but yeah. What is it? As a European, I see USA as very religious. It is the US a, like, I look at a couple of other cultures and it's like, it's almost like if you weren't religious, it would be weird. I feel like a lot of people my age are not religious. Like, people who are, let's say, like, under the age of 40 in America, I don't think religion is very popular, like, practicing religion. But it depends on what part of the country you're in. Like, like, the South, I think, is much more religious than other places. Like, in the city, it's really uncommon, I think, of people my age. But NA is crazy religious compared to the EU. Is that true? I actually, not surprising. I mean, the fact that, like, whenever you hear political discourse in this country, it's like, oh, they need to find a vice president, but they need to make sure that they're like a nice Christian man or something like that. And I'm just like, dude, why the fuck would anyone ever care what religion the vice president is or what religion anyone is in politics? Then it's like, oh yeah, because there are hundreds of millions of people here who are only going to vote for you if that's, which is fucking crazy, by the way. But, you know, that's just how it is. Puts it into perspective. Dude, let's just talk about religion and politics, by the way. Let's just send it. let's just go. Let's just put it all out there, right? Why not? It's just a great Twitch chat idea. Actually, I will say, anytime we've randomly done that in my stream, it has been extremely civil. There's like an extremely small amount of weirdos. I feel like if you're talking about religion, though, and you ever just point out that whatever you believe in is cool and I respect you for that, and I, like, how could you be mad? Right? Like, how could you even be mad about that? You just fucking rip it. Who cares? Let's tier list religions, by the way. Max, do I get VIP? I am at 589k bread points in your channel. Does anyone have higher than that? I know there are some fucking point millionaires in my channel because I remember there was we were co-streaming the TGP like a year or two ago, and it was Echo versus someone else, and Echo lost a series. It wasn't recently against Mandatory. They ended up winning, and they came out of lowers, but they lost versus, like, I want to say, like, Dr. J's team, or just something. Like, do you guys remember what I'm talking? Was it the MDI? It was something like that. Like, there was an MDI in the last couple years where they got knocked to the lower bracket and then came up and won. And it might have been not the finals, or maybe it was, like, group stages. I don't know. But whatever that was, I did, like, channel bets before each of the series. And so many people voted on Echo, and it was like 98 to 2%, and someone put down 600k on the other team, like solo, like by themselves, and then they won. So someone in my channel has, like, I mean, I don't even know what those odds are. It's 2 to 98 with a 600k, but that person has tens of millions of something like that. Was it 250k max? Can you not vote multiple times? If it's 250k max, then maybe it was just 250k. But yeah, someone put in a lot of Ks and won a lot of points. Look at all you guys saying isn't max 250k. Look at you fucking gambling addicts. Let's just get addicted. Max, do you not believe in a life after death, or do you just believe we become dirt? I believe we become dirt for sure. I think when you die, you just like, you close your eyes and you just never wake up. Dirt gang. For sure. I've never heard of anything compelling that would argue otherwise. That just seems the only logical way that would work. Do you know what would be fucking hype, though? If, like, isn't there some people who believe in, like, reincarnation or, like, your not reincarnation, but, like you just transfer onto a new spirit. So, like, you could be a person and then, like, in your next life, you're just, like, a fucking worm or something. Dude, that would go so hard. I would be the most lit worm. Like, when people see me, I'd just, like, be waving, being like a little worm, be like, hey, I'm a little worm. Like that. I've been one of the coolest worms you ever see. That would happen if you had bad karma. Yeah, I don't think karma's real either, but yeah, I mean, let's say I had bad karma. Like, I'd be a fucking lit insect or something, right? Race to worm first? Bro, what are you talking about? All right. Speaking of karma and religion, let's go talk to some Windwalkers. Let me see if they're around. I know Trill wanted to do this, but I think he might have raid today. I have J-Funk and Babylonius on today, and I think it's going to get Trill as well, but... Raid, Trill's Gaming? Yeah, we have raid today. I think they're just doing some, like, heroic splits for gear. Max, my favorite AMA on Reddit was of all time was a guy who 100% believes that his past life he was a lobster. He had, like, full vivid dreams of being in a tank with other little guys. That's fucking lit. That's what I'm saying. Like, some people might think that shit's weird. I think that shit is so fucking funny. Like, you have to just take them at their word for it, and that has to be so fucking funny, man. Dude. Love that. That will be OP if Trill back. Yeah, Trill's raiding in the upcoming expansion. Tell Trill to yap while raiding. I mean, he's not responding, so he's likely... Is any of our guildies streaming the clear? Let's see. Sang Helios. Usually he's streaming. Exile's playing Path of Exile. I don't think anyone in our guild is streaming. Oh, he just responded. He said they are still wiping to Firac. Oh, Lamau. Stay small. You're in the raid after that? Okay, so we might miss Trill today. Yeah, shit. Why don't you follow Gingy? Guys, I don't know. I must be the only person that uses my Twitch this way, because so many of you guys take issue with who I follow and don't follow. But like when I open Twitch, I look at my follower pane, which is here. These are people I might watch. Okay. There's like a little thing here called recommended channels. And to me, sometimes I forget to follow people because they're going to show up here if I watch them sometimes. Like, this means nothing to me. Like, for example, I didn't follow Dratnos for years, but every time Dratnos went live, he was right here, and I knew where I could find him. And there's no difference to me being in this top section versus being in this bottom section. It just means you're on my Twitch main page when I log in. I log into Twitch, I immediately look here. It's the only place I look. I think a lot of people do that. So that's why, I guess. Also, I don't ever really watch Echo streams for whatever reason. But I mean, like, think about the kind of streams I would watch. Like, a lot of Echo streams are, like, playing WoW. But, like, I would never, ever just, like, be off stream and then be like, okay, what I'm going to do now is just watch more people play Mythic Plus or something. Like, that would be, or watch Echo Reclear. Like, what I could never fucking do that. Like, that is the most uninteresting thing to me of all time. Help Ben, he's been live for 19 hours. Hardcore solo self-found lightning strike player cuz bad. God, every time I watch PoE, I'm just reminded of how stupid I am and I can't play this game. He's just fucking gaming. Let's go. Let's go, Ben. Let's go. Let's fucking go. All right, let's make this group. Babylonius, add him. And I'll add Trill just in case he can hop on for a little bit. All right, guys, ready? Max, when was the last time you looked at a picture of I'm Fired Up from like early Shadowlands versus now? Here, let's do that actually. Let's do that right now. I'm Fired Up. Let's do that right now. Okay, clips. All time. Okay. Let's see. Where's one from 4? You mean like one from like 4 years ago, probably? Let's look at this one. Oh my God, you're right. Oh my God, you're right. Look at this. Dude, he looks like a little baby. Holy shit. Okay. And then where's like a recent one, I guess? So clips last 7 days, I guess. 18 hours ago. Oh my God, you're right. Dude, he's a fucking Chad. Look at him. And he's like 6'5" too. Holy fucking moly. What a glow up. Love that for him. Some men have it all. Dude, isn't it true though? Like, this is kind of depressing, but like, I think when you're younger, like people, maybe your parents or someone is like, you can do everything you want to, and if you put your mind to anything, you can be the best person at that, and that's like super encouraging and shit like that. But like, I think as an adult, it's like super obvious that some people are just built better than you. Like, you could both have never done one thing, both of you could spend 100 hours doing it, and someone could be absolutely way better than you. Like, they're smarter, fucking better looking, taller, fucking, you can just high roll, right? Like, your entire bit can just high roll, right? It's kind of sad, but it's also like, it's kind of, it can be peaceful knowing that, because it can be like a coping mechanism too. Like, anytime you suck at something, you can just be like, well, I didn't do it bad, I'm just built bad. right? Like, it's not my fault, bro. I'm just built dog shit. I was just born this way. It is actually more true for a kid, though. Actually, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like, as opposed to an adult, right? Like, as a kid, you can still form a lot of their, like, when you're telling them that kind of stuff when they're really young, you can, like, form a lot of their personality and their will and stuff like that. You can make them, like, more built good. You can build them right. I still think probably a small amount of kids, though, is, like that's just who they are. Like, literally nothing. No amount of parenting. It's like nurture versus nature, right? That whole argument. Let's just fucking rip that on stream too. Why not? Let's just talk about everything today. All right, I'm calling Windwalkers now. Hello?
Hello.
Hello, sir. Also, if you guys want to, certainly do not have to. If any of you guys want to go on camera today, you can. This will probably be on YouTube at some point, but that's purely up to you. I'm going to pop this out real quick and put it on my main monitor. All right, we're just waiting for young J-Funk, who said he was ready, but he made that up. Oh, we got a cam. You're looking great, man. Have you been in the gym?
Gosh, no.
Really? Okay, we were just talking about on stream being built like a beast, just natty. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, this is the summer dad bod style.
That goes hard. All right, J-Funk also on camera. Sweet. I don't think so. Trill might pop in for some of this, but I think he's like either joining a raid or doing some kind of shit like that. So it might just be us three for most of this, which is certainly more than enough. I'll probably give like a little bit more input than I would normally do in these because I just really like my class. It's so funny as compared to last expansion where I did these for every class. This time I was like kind of getting around to it. I'm like, man, I don't really want to do that. So I kind of just decided I just want to do the classes that I actually enjoy. Like either enjoy playing or I'm actually interested in and follow. Because at least I'll be super invested in that. So this is probably the one I've been looking forward to the most, and I'm at least like really happy with a lot of the changes. But you guys probably have your boots more to the ground and are familiar with a lot more downsides than just Shadow Pan.
Yeah, good to list that one right off the bat.
Yeah. Okay, so let me make sure I have my little list of things I want to cover here. This is going to be kind of similar to the ones you guys have done in the past, except we're not going to do like a full spec and class tree breakdown like we did last expansion. It's more just, I want to give you guys some space to be a dev for a little bit, where we're going to do in a little while. I want to get some general overviews and thoughts of how you guys have liked the changes or disliked some of the changes since Dragonflight. Obviously, Dragonflight was like a super specific like AoE Touch of Death monk, which is like kind of unique from like all versions of monk in the past. And then I'm going to have you guys grade the developers on the changes that have been made so far on some specific categories. But before then, just in case some people haven't interacted with you before, or have seen you, can you guys introduce yourself, starting with Babylonius, and kind of give a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Babylonius. I am the kind of primary Windwalker guide writer. I write for Wowhead, Icy Veins, and peakofserenity.com, which is the website that I started many years ago. Current owner, administrator of the Monk Discord, all that stuff. I am raiding in Velocity on Illidan for the War Within. Joined them at the end of or at the start of season 4, give or take. But yeah, I mean that's really it. I kind of have always taken the role of more of the teacher and translator of the more complex thoughts into words that regular people can understand. So that's what I've done for the past 10 plus years.
Okay, and I want to ask you another question in a second, but first, J-Funk, what is tell the people who you are.
Hi, I'm J-Funk. I raid in Humble. That's Dorky's Guild. And I used to do Mythic Plus really high end in like BFA and Shadowlands. I still dabble sometimes, but mostly just do raiding now. And I play Windwalker a lot and I care about it, so.
Yeah, you're always a voice I like to bounce my ideas off of for how I'm feeling about Windwalker. Also, fun story about J-Funk is we raided together in Final Fantasy, and he made a call one time for a boss we were doing, and he sounded so much like a robot that a bunch of haters made a Reddit thread saying that we were using like illegal mods because they thought a robot was talking and it was just him. And I believe since then they actually still refer to that mod or similar mods as you are using a J-Funk. Is that correct?
I mean, as far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, that I've heard. Some of the Final Fantasy dudes were out for the media tour in LA recently, and I brought that up, and they were like, "Dude, they still call it a J-Funk." I was like, "Holy shit." Okay.
That's hilarious.
All right. So, quick question, Babylonians. Before I actually get into any of this, I know that you had some issues with Windwalker design stuff, especially before Dragonflight, and you even went as far as to say that you have such an issue with Windwalker and Raid that I think you've actually made yourself play Feral for a lot of the years for your guild because you didn't want to be someone that was like a liability to the Raid team and maybe did some more priority damage to things. Has that changed in Dragonflight? Is that changing in the War Within? What do you see yourself maining going forward?
Yeah, so that is the case. I mean, I switched to Feral Druid just because Windwalker was so astronomically bad. You know, it's single target at the end of Shadowlands, and I just didn't like that hard focus on AoE things. So I did play Feral Druid. I did get pushed back to Feral Druid going into Amir Drasil because Windwalker, again, the damage was really, really bad. And then, I mean, it got some of the biggest buffs really any class has ever gotten. But that was kind of too late. I was already, you know, geared up on my Feral and cooking and stuff. So right now the plan is to, you know, as it always has been, to kind of stick with Windwalker. I will be keeping my Feral, you know, in my pocket, just kind of given where, you know, if we need a Mark of the Wild or stuff like that. But the plan, you know, as much as it can be, is to stick with Windwalker and, you know, at least ride the benefits of all the changes as long as I can.
I think we both did not play Windwalker and Amir Drasil. I played Og, so.
Oh wow, the bumped to support role.
Well, I mean, I played Dancer in our Final Fantasy 14 time, so like, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, do you? I guess we could just do an entire long thing about Og. We'll save that. I'm interested in always thoughts on people who decide to do that. But you are back to Windwalker in the War Within, correct?
I mean, it depends on like what we need for our comp, but I'll play either.
All right, cool. All right, so before we get anything else, we're gonna spend some time on the hero. We're gonna spend some time on the hero talents. We're gonna spend some time to the talent tree changes, which there are a plentiful amount of things to talk about for those specifically. I'm gonna give you guys some time if you want to think ahead about it now. Where if you were a Blizzard dev, what could you change or add? That'll be in the future, and then we'll give things grades on some specific areas. But starting off with Babylonius, I just want to know general thoughts from Dragonflight to War Within, the entire rework or like retouching of the class, and any positive or negative insights you have from the changes they've made.
Yeah, so I think, you know, we all have our little nitpicks and stuff about this kind of big talent overhaul, you know, that we saw in the last couple months. But overall, I think super duper positive. You know, the thing that I'm most happy about and most excited about is just the kind of under the hood changes that got made, you know, in regards to the scaling, you know, adding haste scaling and all that stuff.
Auto attacks.
The spec should be, the spec should be a lot healthier of a place going forward. You know, obviously we can't totally prognosticate all the way, you know, 2 years from now, but you know, we should be and shouldn't fall into that kind of classic trap of poor scaling and stuff. Scaling should be better. You know, so that really, I think, is the biggest thing that excites me, as much as, you know, I lament, you know, becoming the haste walker that people have been trying to get the spec to be for so many years. But I really like the way that it's done. I'm happy right now with kind of the best simming talents. There's a big variation between how the spec feels depending on what talents you take. You can go from a lot of downtime to negative downtime and more than you can press. You know, so I'm happy with kind of where things have settled right now. The spec's really, really fun. There's some doofy bugs and stuff, especially with the changes to Chi Burst, but Overall, I mean, just really, really positive change. And I think if they can nail down, a little bit more identity with the different hero talents, that the spec will be in a really good spot. So I'm happy.
I agree with everything you said. What about you, J Funk?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what he said as well. I do think that there needs to be some improvements, so we'll talk about later, to some of the talents. Like some of the capstone talents are a little bit weird, and obviously Shadowpan. And there's some bugs. But yeah, I mean, I think anything is better than going from the end of Dragonflight playstyle, because I mean, I played it end of Season 4, and God, Skyreach Jade Fire Stomp was probably the worst playstyle I think it's ever had.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it is a lot better. The scaling stuff is really exciting. I'm interested to see where it ends up, because the scaling is really good, but they still need to tune the class as well, which has been a problem in the past. But yeah, I think it's a lot better.
All right, so I actually want to go to hero talents a little bit after this. I want to ask you guys about some specific spec tree additions that I think are really, really cool. So number one is no more Serenity Storm, Earth, and Fire choice node. You are always Storm, Earth, and Fire, as well as giving you an option for 1 point to kind of bake in a little bit of how Weapons of Order used to feel with a talent point. I just wanted to hear your all's thoughts on like the cooldown cycle and like what your cooldowns look like in the War Within and how you feel about that.
So Serenity isn't entirely con. If you play Conduit, it's pretty similar-ish in playstyle. It's kind of this weird amalgam of like Shadowlands and like Tomb of Sargeras, Windwalker a little bit. There's one change that they made which affects your cooldowns is Glory of the Dawn also affects or it procs Zwin's battle gear, and it affects RSK stuff. So you can do like RSK Fist of Fury feedback loop stuff in your
cool.
Conduit window. I don't mind Serenity being gone. We actually had a discussion last night in the Discord about how people wanted it back because they miss the difference in playstyle, but I don't mind it being gone. I think the resource waste towards the end was pretty bad, but I think back in the past it's been really nice to have, and I think for the future it makes the Blizzard, they need to like actually make sure the SCF works properly, because there is no alternative anymore. They have been good about that, but it is a concern of mine going forward. And I think for Order Elements, or the Weapons of Order playstyle thing that you mentioned, is I like it a lot, and it's much more lenient than it used to be. But I wish that I wish there was an alternative node that was easier to use, because I recognize that it's not everyone's cup of tea. Like, even back in the day, not everyone liked Irian playstyle. So, but I think it is fine, and it's not that hard anymore because it's 7 seconds instead of 5. But
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel similar. I think the biggest thing is that it should just make kind of other things easier going forward. I think kind of having to balance or always have one or the other in the back of your mind has been kind of exhausting. I think of that, because there's really very rarely been a position that we've been in where, okay, you can choose between one or the other. It's almost always been, this one dominates or that one dominates. So I like the change. I think if they had to pick one or the other, sticking with Storm, Earth, and Fire is totally okay. And I definitely share, the concerns about all the bugs and the silliness that Storm, Earth, and Fire has had in the past. So fingers crossed that that's not a major problem going forward. But overall, I just think, and I talked about this a lot, months ago and stuff, that just Windwalker really needed a identity, and I think that split between Storm, Earth, and Fire and Serenity really made it harder to kind of have that identity. So I'm hoping that things are a little bit simpler for us, for the brain people to figure stuff out, but also for the designers to be able to tweak and make changes without we're going to put all this effort into Storm, Earth, and Fire, but then Serenity just ends up being stronger, so that all of the effort is, gone. Like, hopefully it helps them kind of narrow their focus and make that progress.
Okay. Two more major ones I want to talk about in the spec tree. Actually, I guess there's technically 3, but one I just want to talk about Whirling Dragon Punch. Whirling Dragon Punch is something a lot of people going into Dragonflight were like, this is in the spec tree, but you're not really playing it. And like, I really miss, this feels like a core ability. To a lot of people, Whirling Dragon Punch feels like Fist of Fury, and Rising Sun Kick. It's just part of Windwalker's rotation, and it being gone for a while felt bad. I think personally, Zwen's Battle Gear being something you played last expansion kind of felt like it took the place rotationally of Whirling Dragon Punch. So they kind of added it back to where it seems like a lot of the times it's worth it, but they added a really cool choice node that like either gives you a spinning crane kick or dance of Chi-Chi proc, which is really powerful, or it can give you a lot of blackout kick charges. Both at least seem like design-wise where they would have places where you would take either of them. And that's just been something that I personally found is like, this is maybe the best way they could bring this back. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think them kind of bringing Whirling Dragon Punch back into the fold with like a new unique twist on it, as using it as almost like an enabler or a generator as well as doing a lot of damage? Do you guys like that approach? Do you guys appreciate the changes they made, or do you guys disagree with that? Either one of you.
Yeah, I mean, my big concern with bringing Whirling Dragon Punch back was just kind of if we leaned into all of the talents that we have that give resources, that give resets, that give all the, then kind of adding Whirling Dragon Punch on top of that, in testing and stuff through alpha and beta was very difficult. Even right now in a lot of, and I think really all of our guides, we have Whirling Dragon Punch pushed, kind of artificially high on the priority, because if you don't use it when it's available, you could all of a sudden have Rising Sun Kick come off cooldown, and then you can't use Whirling Dragon Punch again. So there's some of that I think is still a little bit more complicated than I like. I think, forever advocate for going back to the way it worked for like 3 days in Shadowlands when it was bugged, when it just kind of happened anytime both Rising Sun Kick and Fist of Fury were on cooldown. And it just kind of did all that damage, and it was a little bit more of a passive, but still benefited from using things on cooldown and whatnot. And, I like a lot of the work they did to kind of cut down on some of the buttons. So adding Whirling Dragon Punch back does add another, extra button to press. But with the state of the talent setup that we're looking at right now, it's not as bad. It could be more in the way, I think, depending on how the talents shake out. So right now, I'm okay.
What about you, J-Funk?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I don't know if you're aware, but in May of last year, I came up with like this monk rework, and I put it in the Discord, like the class Discord. And one of the things I included was Whirling Dragon Punch being a capstone that has a node like the the Dance of Chi-Chi one.
Oh,
and I like that playstyle because it's kind of like it feels like a combo, especially right now if you do like the whole sequence where it's like you do the Whirling Dragon Punch, which gives you a dance proc, and then you use the dance proc, and then it gives you a blackout kick proc, and it feels like a combo, which I feel like that's kind of part of the class's identity, and that feels really good.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with all that. Even the I don't even know if you use it currently, but like the Teachings of Monastery going to 8 and then having like a cleaving blackout kick. I know it doesn't stack all the like damage increases on every single use of it when you do something like that, but it's still just like so satisfying to press. I just love everything they did with that. Now sorry, go ahead.
1 second. I will say they need to add a grace window for Whirling Dragon Punch currently, because it is, especially when you get Conduit into the mix, it's like impossible to use it in your cooldowns. It's very bad.
Oh, I see. So like when you proc Whirling Dragon Punch and you meet the requirements of both Rising Sun Kick and Fist of Fury being on cooldown, there needs to be like no matter what, 5 seconds where you can use it and you don't have to try to slam it immediately.
Yeah, like something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I completely agree with you.
I mean, even something as small as 3 seconds would be a huge improvement in how you could, not need to rush it. Or
yeah, because the Celestial Conduit stuff's really cool. So it's like, it's not that you dislike that is happening. It's just like, it's just a weird interaction with the way that the activation for the spell works.
Right.
Okay, another thing. So they really, I think this was all majorly in an effort to make Haste a stat that Windwalkers always want. But they obviously added the thing where like Haste increased your Fist of Fury damage. Cool. But I think they also intentionally removed Expel Harm granting you Chi, Chi Burst granting you Chi, and they wanted to mitigate the ways that you were just gaining free Chi, which is like basically what Haste would help you with, to make Haste a stat that you want. Initially when I played with this, I was like, man, this really sucks. Like it just, you're used to like Expel Harming for like on-demand Chi and to like sometimes have it be an easier way to not break your mastery or your hit combo stacks in the middle of your rotation. And it was something that took a while to get used to. But I just want to ask you all, how do you think they've handled that? I know there's some other weird stuff with like they had to make you auto attack during spinning crane kick, but now like using abilities cancels your spinning. There's like some weird stuff like that for them to solve. base problems that you said was really a good thing, and it's going to be healthier down the road because they've done these things. But like, I don't know, how do you guys feel like they've approached the let's make Haste for Windwalker good now? Let's make you actually feel like you want talents like Energy Burst or Inner Peace or something to where you actually feel the energy generation or the resource generation from those talents, which you previously would just avoid at all costs. Like just that entire rework of the class of like we're changing the way your energy comes to you. What are your all's opinions on that so far?
You can start, Babs.
All right. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think the biggest thing that I miss, you know, in regards to that kind of first topic of expel harm and like missing out on expel harm and power strikes that kind of both gave you that third chi or that first, you know, that one chi that you needed. I think that's really what I've missed the most. Just kind of the odd number of chi. You know, you're sitting at 2 and Fist of Fury is available. You know, you might be having to wait, you know, to get Tiger Palm off, as opposed to, you know, earlier if you had power strikes, there was a higher likelihood that you were on an odd number of chi to help with using Fist of Fury. Same with having Expel Harm, being able to use that, you know, as an on-demand kind of one chi to fit in there. I like that. I definitely this past week in raiding didn't miss it as much as I expected to. And there was a certain amount of that I was kind of surprised. Some of that is the fact that they increased the duration of hit combo, you know, to 30 seconds, I think it is. So there's a lot less need to kind of sit and keep your hit combo going. It's a lot easier to do. And that was really the biggest thing, or a big thing with Expel Harm. But really the biggest place that I missed Expel Harm was landing after going up to get the orbs on Tindril and coming down. I didn't realize that I had the muscle memory of using Expel Harm to dismount, as well as, you know, get one chi back and kind of stuff like that. So I landed on Tindril this week and was wondering why my abilities weren't going off, and it was because I was still mounted. So that was just a weird kind of quirky thing that happened, but not really Expel Harm's fault.
Yeah. What about you, J-Funk?
I like the haste scaling stuff. I'll talk about the spinning crane kick stuff. It is really weird feeling to go from like having it not be a quote unquote real channel for like however many years to now you just like, I think the optimal way to play is to macro into every one of your abilities to not interrupt the channel.
Correct.
Because
yeah.
I mean, you're gonna do that by accident sometimes. I do think it's better for the class, but I do think there should be exceptions made. Like I think we should be able to interrupt during our channel or our crane kick channel because it feels really bad to have to do that.
There are classes that have that.
To...
There are classes that have the ability to interrupt during, not really necessarily channels, but it's like Bladestorm, right? Think like when you're, yeah, some similar concept at least.
Mm-hmm.
I like the haste scaling. I think it's
we've been asking for a long time, interrupting during spinning crane kick or Fist of Fury.
Or Fist of Fury, yeah, because it feels weird to like in Mythic Plus where you're like, why am I the only melee that has to cancel their like channel to do that? It's super weird. But the haste scaling is really good. I think Glory of the Dawn haste scaling is really cool. It does make us a pretty good PI target, which for some people is good, some people it's bad because being reliant on it isn't the greatest thing. And the Expel Harm thing, it's more just so like it keeps your hands busy, or of like, okay, I'm not just sitting here, I can just press a button and then I can get chi. That feels good. I'm kind of weird and I like using it for like the on-demand heal, which is kind of somewhat replaced with Vivify, but not really. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I think if you're used to the older playstyle from like BFA Shadowlands, it isn't as much of a crazy change. But Dragonfly just gave you so much resource that now you're going back to this, and it's like, it kind of feels weird, especially because a lot of people had like 0% haste logging into the pre-patch. So, one thing about the the Expel Harm thing, what is it called? Combat Wisdom, right? Okay.
Yeah.
When there's an old like chi thing where when you enter combat you can't have more than one chi, to prevent like cheesing from like spec swapping and stuff. Well, there's a bug right now, hopefully it gets fixed in pre-patch, that I want to mention, where if you enter combat with 2 chi from Combat Wisdom, it goes down to 1, which makes your opener feel really weird because you're supposed to do like Tiger Palm, RSK, Tiger Palm, then a cooldown, but you can't do that right now.
Okay. All right, cool. There's a couple other things specifically about the tree that I wanted to mention. I kind of want to do just 2 though. So they had Last Emperor's Capacitor their last expansion. I think it was on the spec tree the whole time, but it was just like super dog shit, so you would just never take it under any circumstances. I believe the tuning of that has it at least somewhat interesting, not to mention they added a choice node. And I think a lot of people are discovering, even though this has been in the game for a while, that like the glyph that turns it red just looks like super sick, or other colors. Have you guys liked that as a thing back in the game? Or I don't even know. I haven't even followed along. I don't even know if it's like even tuned well enough to ever take. But just any opinions on the Crackling Jade Lightning as part of your rotation?
So this was like a later change in the beta. They buffed it. So they buffed Emperor's Capacitor by like twice as much. So at max stacks, it's 4,000% now. It's a D3 step bonus. And the cleave thing, I think it feels pretty good, but it feels more intended for Shadowpan than Conduit. Because it feels like you want to structure your cooldowns around the lightning thing. And I like what they did with it. I think the cleave portion of it is cool. And it isn't a choice node at the bottom. I hope they don't add another node at the bottom, because we're already kind of restricted on points down below. And I would hope Emperor's Capacitor would be good by itself on single target. But I played this in like Antorus and stuff. I like that it's back and they actually buffed it, so it might be usable.
Yeah, I mean, it's closer now to being usable than it was in Dragonflight, certainly. And the AOE talent, I think, is really cool. It's visually very cool in how it works, just kind of zapping everything around you. So it's nice the way that it's back in that regard. Single target, when I was playing around with it during raid testing and stuff, it just is still, a real bummer to have to press if you have to move or anything like that. Like I still, and I think most people would probably agree, like it just you need to be able to cast it while moving, in some way, because in a class with that much movement, it's the same issue people are having with Chi Burst. Even though we've been used to that, but it's something that's stuck around where you have to stop to cast it. And it just sucks when it's a little bit of a longer channel, especially with the tuning. It's a stronger channel, so you don't necessarily want to start it and risk canceling it, stuff like that. So there's definitely some improvements that can be made, and it is in a better place and certainly closer to being usable and less, disruptive than it has been in the past, which is progress, at least.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last thing for the spec tree, this is kind of a lot of topics in one, but like kind of the updates they've made to Strike of the Windlord. There's an entire like talent row based off just that ability now that you can follow. Thunder Fist is like better than it was before, because you can actually get the melees off, where like previously you would just lose a lot of those stacks due to not being able to melee or not being able to melee fast enough. Rushing Jade Wind has been reworked as something that used to be, man, this never happened last expansion, but if Rushing Jade Wind was ever like the best thing you had to take, just one of the worst ability designs of all time, into something that they added as a passive, instant Mark of the Crane. No idea of the tuning of it currently. And then also that it turns Strike of the Windlord into like a little mini damage window, right? You have like a little bit extra damage. I think when I was looking at this as well, also when you're doing the extra, your abilities do damage a second time for nature damage. That was also scaling with Zwen's bond reduction. I think at least it has like some kind of interaction like that. Like what I guess what are your all's takes on that? I don't know if it's something you currently take, but like just kind of their Blizzard's expanding upon the power and importance of Strike of the Windlord.
I think it's really good. I think with the change to kind of helping us to auto attack more, having Thunder Fist still be a really cool and strong ability, or extra thing that happens is super useful. Rushing Jadewood now, I think really the biggest benefit of it is because we don't shadowboxing treads doesn't put Mark of the Crane on additional targets anymore. Rushing Jadewind and by extension Strike of the Windlord has kind of become the easier way to mark things as needed. So that's kind of nice. And the fact that it's passive, because you're absolutely right, it was awful to play with previously, just kind of across the board, just an unpleasant button to have. So it's definitely an improvement. It was a very interesting change, and I for them to kind of put it over there and add it to Strike of the Windlord, and I didn't know how it was going to feel, but it works well enough that it's there, and you notice it because you don't have to put up as many marks and stuff like that. But it's not as, kind of in your face to where if you're not playing with it, if you feel comfortable managing the marks yourself, right, it is probably a benefit to not take it and put that talent point elsewhere, or it might be close. So I like that. I like that that choice that people can potentially have especially for newer players getting used to the spec, to kind of help ease into that. And for people who got used to Mark of the Crane really not being something we needed to manage ourselves for a long time. And now we do again, which is kind of bothersome.
Okay.
I think it's really good. I do think with Conduit, there's so many effects attached to Strike of the Windlord in this expansion, especially with Conduit, that it effectively becomes its own cooldown because you have Gale Force, which is the added damage thing, and then you have Heart of the Jade Serpent and all this stuff, and it's a lot, which in turn makes it so the base damage of Strike isn't that impactful. It's just everything that's like attached to it. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but they very recently buffed the Communion with Wind node from 20% to 80% damage, but it's still kind of not great, just because like the base damage of Strike isn't that great. And I think Darting Hurricane is one of the talents. It's like the Dust of the Wind of this expansion. Like, I understand what they were going for. They wanted to,
I hate that talent. I played with it one time, and I like, please, for the love of God, do not tell me it is the best simming thing. But like,
it's so weird to play with.
Okay, yeah, like I played it one time, and I'm like, I'm never specking this again, because you would just not even realize that you have it, and you'd like double press, ruin your mastery. Oh my God, it was so bad.
Right. Yeah, I think the random proc part of it is bad, but I understand they wanted like the expel harm short global feeling, but as a capstone, it's very underwhelming, especially where it is. Personally, this is a problem I have with a lot of the bottom half of the tree, and what we'll discuss later is that right now, Windwalker is actually better at single target than it is AOE, and I think part of the reason is that it doesn't have a whole lot of AOE stuff at the bottom of the tree that it can take that's powerful. Like, you have Power of the Thunder King, but that's 5 target cap, right? I wish there was a node that made Strike uncapped or something. Like, maybe that's where Darting Hurricane should be instead. Like, just something like, have a button that's like, oh, this hits really hard in AoE. Like, this feels good.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like Darting Hurricane would want to be something near the top of the tree with less power involved, and something you choose alongside or near Combat Wisdom, where it's like, okay, but it's not random. It's like when you press Strike of the Windlord or something, you're next to, or is that actually what it is? No. Oh yeah, it's after.
It's part of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of it. I don't know, just like some button you press where you know the next two things are going to be fast. Would be nice, and it would be more of like it's almost like how Demon Blades is in the tree, and how one of those Warrior Devastator is, where it's like you're making this choice early on that you're either pressing this button or you're not. It's not exactly replacing Tiger Palm, but it's like a different way or a feel of it, and it's very related to how Expel Harm used to work. So I feel like it should be somewhere higher, but I kind of agree with you if they're going to do something like that. But I'll tell you right now, that's one of those talents where if they have that as listed, if one of you guys list that as like the best damage talent, there ain't no way I'm playing with that.
I think it's like a 2% damage increase. I do think we need to talk about Jade Fire Stomp, though. I think it is important to talk about it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was actually about to give you guys space to move on before the class tree to talk about anything in the tree that you find problematic or otherwise cool that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, Jade Fire Stomp is one of the big stinkers of this tree, and it sucks because it occupies so much space on the bottom of this tree. They reworked it so you don't have to stand it anymore, but then after the initial rework, they kind of just abandoned it, the whole alpha and beta, and they added Jade Fire Fist. Now, Jade Fire Fist is useless. I don't mean that like I'm being exaggerating. I mean, there is no situation where you pick Jade Fire Fist over Jade Fire Stomp, mainly just because of the internal cooldown that is present with it. To me, it's a weird design of a talent, because if they remove the internal cooldown, because it procs off Fist of Fury, like ending or whatever, but attaching an internal cooldown to a dynamic cooldown ability is weird, because then you can't guarantee you'll proc it and you'll waste procs. But then if you remove the internal cooldown, then it just becomes a better way to use Jade Fire Stomp. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Regardless, Jade Fire Stomp is still not interesting of a capstone for me. It's really just like you press button every 15 seconds and it does damage. Like, that's okay, or it buffs your damage, and it's like, okay. I don't know. I think they need to decide what they want to do with the direction of Jade Fire Stomp going forward, or just flat out, my suggestion is remove it, because I feel like it's not worth it. move Emperor's Capacitor over there, add some more nodes for that or something, and then add like an AOE capstone where Cap is right now. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but it is very bad. It's undertuned, and it's just kind of whatever feeling in terms of playing it.
I think something that you guys have said so far that is super interesting to me is that you feel like this class is really good in single target, but it doesn't have a lot of good cleave options. And as someone who plays a lot of Windwalker and hasn't followed the changes as nearly as closely as you have, it's just fascinating that it seems like for the first time ever, Windwalker isn't just going to do a bunch of free cleave with all the single target they're doing, right? Like that's kind of always been their thing, is like whatever build they're playing is they're pretty good at doing both. I guess like the spec trees changed that a little bit in Dragonflight, but like that's kind of always been their bit, is like if you need a class that's going to do really good AoE and single target, Windwalker's probably been in a historical like top 3 or top 5 DPS in Mythic Plus for this exact reason, right? Over since Legion. So I don't know. What do you? So you guys think that is different now? You would like more AOE options or quick points you could put into that area?
So I'll go real quick. Yeah, I just think that like, personally, my suggestion is they just increase the cap of Mark of the Crane to 8. It's just our big AOE in Mythic Plus stinks. Like our big pull AOE is everything's target capped to 5 now, pretty much, or soft capped at least. It feels really bad when you get like 3 dance procs in AOE, and then you're just still like, even with a tank or something, it just feels really bad. Like, and part of the problem is that you pick Dance of Chi-Ji all the time now, so they can't really buff Dance of Chi-Ji because then it also buffs your single target. I think buffing Mark of the Crane specifically is the way to go going forward. Also, recently we had nerfs and they nerfed our AoE, which seemed weird because even before the nerfs we weren't that great at Mythic Plus, from my experience. So I don't know there, but I guess, what does Babs think here?
Yeah, I mean, in regards to the AoE, I think it's another situation where Windwalker's kind of stuck between identities. You know, is it a spec? We had the spec that was full on, you know, Touch of Death AoE, and you know, although incredibly powerful, generally disliked from my perspective.
Oh yeah.
You know, but then, you know, we have Whirling Dragon Punch back, certainly, which is some AoE, Fist of Fury, you know, stuff like that. I really like the idea of getting rid of Darting Hurricane, or making that into like, so that Strike of the Windlord does 100% of its damage to, you know, all targets hit, like it did way back when it first was introduced. But then there's other things. Are we a class that does AoE while we single target, or, you know, do we want to focus more on spinning Crane Kick and Jade Ignition, or, you know, Dance of Chi-Ji and stuff like that? Like, I just think there's kind of in between. A lot of the AoE power in the War Within is kind of trapped inside the Conduit spell. And, you know, that does a lot of kind of, and it shows up big on the meters. Everybody, you know, oohs and ahs at how much damage it does. But at the same time, it kind of detracts if you have all of the quality in that specific, you know, section. And
Okay.
at the moment, we're without it, so it's a very weird spot to be kind of stuck in.
To be fair, that Conduit is split damage after 5, so it isn't the greatest giant AoE thing. I just feel like the rotation is missing like a big AoE like button or feeling in it. Like, it feels like you do your spinning Crane Kick, Whirling Dragon Punch, spinning Crane Kick thing, and then that's it. Like, that's your big moment of excitement in AoE. I wish there was like, I miss applying a bunch of marks and being like, oh, I have a ton of marks in this pull, that feels really good, and then I just go. I don't know. As much as masterless BDB spamming stuff felt degenerate, it did feel different and it felt powerful when you were doing it. I want like a feeling where like, oh, I'm going into AoE, I have all this stuff, I'm excited, but the tree doesn't really have an option for that currently. It's like missing something where it needs like a button or a talent option that's like, oh, this is like your big AoE, this feels really good kind of thing.
Yeah, I think with that, and I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, you know, in some of the raid testing, in kind of the nature of some of the ads, I think on Court, the second to last one, like the ads are up for a very short period of time and they're kind of spread out. And this has happened a lot in Windwalker AoE over the years, especially in raids where burst AoE, you know, you got a warrior just immediately start spinning, or a, you know, whatever everybody else can do. And, you know, as a Windwalker, all right, I got to get my mark stacks up because I didn't have max stacks. I got to get Rising Sun Kick and Fist of Fury on cooldown so I can use Whirling Dragon Punch. And but kind of by the time you go through all of that stuff, most of the time things are dead. and you're kind of just left standing there. So that is something that I really noticed, just kind of because of how the spec plays right now, and the nature of the different AOE kind of places, is that it still takes Windwalker a long time to kind of get up and cruising, and that was mitigated a little bit, or maybe a lot of it, by Touch of Death. Because if say on Dathia, nothing else is going on, all right, I'm just going to sit here, and the second it becomes available, I'm going to Touch of Death them all to death. And we don't really have that, so that kind of delay in how long it takes Windwalker to get rolling really holds back what we can do in burst AoE, or whether that's in Mythic Plus or in a raid.
Yeah, Brew Twister was especially testing that was harrowing. When you're like in the AoE section, you're like, okay, I'm setting up my damage, and the warriors have killed everything. Okay, good. All right, moving on. It just felt like you were more focused on like single target. Like that felt like a good fight for MCAP AoE stuff, but like not in the Parasite section, but later on.
Yeah, you wish you just had a note at the bottom where it's like, all right, this is a fight where we need some burst AoE, and I just don't even have a burst AoE. I think that's like a hard thing though, because like I think part of the changes they made, we talked about how it being about energy efficiency, where they kind of removed expel harm as a button, but they also wanted to remove the total amount of buttons from Windwalker, which I think is also a concern, right? So like I don't think they would want you to have another button that does that, but it would be nice if something could be reworked into it, or have like no target cap or something, or some faster burst AoE now, just to kind of help mitigate that a bit. I see that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, and I don't mind. I mean, obviously, like we talked at the beginning, playing Feral, I like about Feral that I can just ignore anything else going on and focus on the boss. Windwalker has never been designed that way, and because we, when I play Feral, I can consciously do almost no AoE damage, or damage to extra targets. Whereas Windwalker, we have a lot of that, so it kind of sucks that it's not really strong enough to worry about, but at the same time, we don't really have another option. We're going to do AoE damage kind of no matter what you do. So it kind of stinks that the AoE damage is that restrictive.
I do think if Shadowpan does get buffed eventually, it does enable like a funnel profile for Windwalker, that they could just like AoE on those kind of fights and just funnel damage into a boss or something. So there is that option, I guess.
Okay. Going off of the spec tree, I just want general thoughts on the class tree. We don't have to talk about a lot of things in specific. They obviously removed multiple raid buffs from monks, not as if you needed multiple, but interesting to talk about that aspect, at least in comparison to some other classes and what they bring. More of like a Mythic Plus problem, because you'll always bring them to raid. But they lost that. They gained some really cool new movement options. You guys lost a defensive. Again, I don't think monks were necessarily like clamoring for all the defensives they had. They certainly had plenty. Although could be an interesting world if how that feels as monk when you're losing a defensive, but also maybe with the new stats not wanting verse as much, and then also not like being able to expel harm. I guess Vivify can kind of replace it, but just like the general tankiness just could be something that's interesting. I don't foresee them being bad, but something that just might feel different. I think any class that goes from stacking versus... Actually, just quick, you guys are sim. Some of you guys are sim people. Is verse still good?
Yeah, right now it's
yes, sir.
We're kind of grabbing after haste.
You're grabbing verse after haste? Okay, well, crit and mastery aren't good enough then. Anyways, moving on. The class tree. General thoughts. Don't have to spend a long time on this. Just what are your guys' thoughts from before till now?
It's significantly better. There are a few bugs I want to point out, though. Pressure points is the node that removes enrage effects with paralysis.
Yeah.
The soothe effect that's attached to that when you pick this pulls mobs. So it makes that talent useless almost. Also, it's not that useful to have a 30-second soothe, but they need to change it so that does not pull mobs. And then Chi Burst, when you use Chi Burst and use Crane Kick, it cancels Crane Kick. So that's kind of weird. But I think my overall thoughts are it's really good. It's way better, way more freedom to pick what you want. I do think the bottom of the tree gets maybe a little bit point starved, kind of, but not really. It's just you kind of have to pick both 2-pointers, so like you have 4 points left to choose what you want. Lighter than air is super cool. It is kind of weird that it increases the cooldown of roll for some reason, but it's really cool to have like a way to cancel fall damage and have an extra dash and stuff.
Oh, I never thought about it canceling fall damage. That's sick.
Yeah. it's a little tricky to use. Like, that was the first thing I did, was I started rolling off of the cliffs in Orgrimmar, and because of the nature, like, you're not going to roll off something, and the buff might be gone by the time you hit the ground, but you can roll in the air. So it does, it's certainly something that'll come with practice, but it can be a little hectic of, oh my God, I got to roll and then I got to do this. But it's really nice to be able to have that, as an option. It really just is something that people have been asking for a really, really long time. And it's nice to finally get it, even though, there certainly is ways to use it. Windwalker is not a spec that's hurting for movement. I am almost positive, that with, if we were to fully talent into it, I don't think any class can beat Windwalker in a run, in a sprint race, or, even maybe.
That's probably been true, I think. It
was close. I lost a couple races,
Do you actively race people?
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's, why have all these talents if you're not going to use them? But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some classes that can be close. But Windwalker, is super duper fast. So people are not really going to feel like, oh, I need to take lighter than air. And I think that's obviously a good thing. It's really far down there and is meant to kind of be that flavor. So not needing to go all the way down there all the time is good. There's some nice other movement speed, increases in the talents, outside of combat and whatnot. So I think overall that's good. The bugs with Chi Burst are kind of annoying. And certainly, again, if it's the only thing that we have to kind of stop and use, it just kind of highlights that it's got a cast time, and you can't move and whatnot, plus some of the bugs. And it's another proc, right now it's a third random proc, and it kind of leans Windwalker further into being a responsive proc based class, without actually going there. So it just kind of can feel very out of place. But
the Cheapers change feels like they made it so they could like add to make a change or something, right? That's what it feels like to me. Like, why do they need to change it? And one of the problems with it now is that if you use it, like, you get so many procs. If you use it, it's like your top damage almost. It's weird. It's a weird thing for me. Like, I don't know why they change it like this. Personally, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it feels very antithetical to the change they made to Chi Wave, right? Where they kind of cut back on a button and let it happen on its own. And then to kind of keep Chi Burst as a cast. I don't know, a lot of people, wanted it and kind of missed it, but it doesn't give us Chi anymore. There's no more Feline Stomp or Jade Fire Stomp for it to reset. Like, so a lot of the other stuff we use, so they buffed the damage, and you certainly have an easier time utilizing it in AOE than in single target. But it just can be very proc overload at times, and that's just not necessarily a good thing or a fun thing to experience. But I mean, overall for me, I think the class tree is a win. I think Windwalker was in a position before where we kind of had a cooldown for just about everything, and I think the spec is really still in that. There's enough cooldowns for the most part that you should be able to plan things out and feel confident that you'll be able to get stuff done. But there are still improvements, of course, that need to be made or can be made in that regard. Windwalking is still, hilarious that it's there. 4% at one point.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Better than it used to be. But
I mean, it's still so trash. It's bad.
Like, they got rid of the two more worthwhile, aura things, and kept the one that really doesn't do anything. It does stack with other things, which is nice, because that's a big kind of quality of life improvement. But there are a lot of those changes. Making White Tiger statue happen automatically is kind of
oh yeah, that was one of the worst button presses of all. That was one of the worst button presses of all time.
Oh yes, it's the only thing that ever came close to rushing Jadewind in terms of just how awful it felt to press.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is one of our main defensives now is 4-Pro, which means we benefit from Holy Priest, which before we did not at all with the symbols.
Oh, good point. Yeah. Yeah, them moving, they kind of shifted some of that power from losing the defensive into 4-Pro. Well, also, they also nerfed the Holy Priest thing. I think that needed to happen, though. Like, they nerfed how much the Holy Priest thing reduced at last expansion. I think by almost, I think it's like a third as powerful as it used to be, which is probably necessary. But, yeah, I mean, are you guys concerned at all about that? I would say if I were to have rated what every class brings to a raid as far as, like, passive buffs, kind of ignoring utility, more just, like, buffs, like comparing Mark of the Wild versus Fort, comparing monks bringing 4% kind of avoidance and 8% increased healing taken and 5% fizz, I would put Monk in top 3 if you include all 3 of those things in any hard content. Now I would put them probably near the very bottom with just 5% physical damage increase, at least if you're talking in a 5-man dungeon environment. Does that concern you guys at all? Or, I mean, this is such a weird, we're in the super weird era of raid buffs where raid buffs only exist in Blizzard's own words to give, you know, they want in a 20-man mythic raid for you to bring one of every class as a baseline. That is what they want. And raid buffs should be no more powerful than accomplishing that, and obviously not weak enough to not accomplish that. But in Mythic Plus, there's a huge conversation as to how these buffs actually can determine Mythic Plus spots for an entire expansion and how easy it is to get invited to groups and stuff like that. So I guess just really, my first question would be, although while it kind of frees up some space on your spec tree a bit, actually, not really, because there are just 2 other 2-point nodes that exist, and you have to take them in that part of the tree now, but just not the same way, I guess. Are you guys concerned at all about potential viability with your buff?
I mean, it is a little bit concerning, just because didn't you guys consider dropping Mystic Touch sometimes when like casters were really good? So, I mean, it is the buff you kind of want to drop first, I feel like. But I do think it gives them more room to, like, maybe you buff Windwalking so that it has some kind of utility thing where, like, maybe it makes you more resistant to pushback effects or something. I mean, it allows them to, like, beef up, like, the utility that was already there before.
Yeah, I think Windwalker is kind of... Wait, did you say that we were considering dropping Monk? I don't think that ever happened. Windwalker, like, Monk dropping...
Wasn't it, like, Lords of Dread or something?
Oh, Lords of Dread was a absolute meme. I think you didn't play Mage on Lords of Dread. Like, that was, like,
yeah, there was something like that.
You dropped ranged, yeah, but, like, Windwalker actually had decent damage for that. But it's, yeah, at least when it had both of those buffs, I mean, sitting 4% avoidance and 8% increased healing is absolutely nonsense. Like, that's just so OP. But yeah, you could drop the fizz damage element of it. Like, surprisingly, a lot of the besides like hunters and warriors, like most classes that you would think would get buffed from that do like 50% or less of their damage as physical generally. So it's a pretty weak buff. It's much worse than like Battle Shout, for example. Okay, so kind of I kind of want to move on a bit to hero talents, which we'll have to spend a decent amount of time on, I'm sure. Is there any final thoughts you guys have? You will have a section later of, like, if you guys were a Blizz dev for a week, I'll ask each of you this. If you could change or add anything to your class, what would you do? You could keep some of the questions here for that, but you just have anything remaining from class and spec trees that aren't, like, super specific that we didn't go over. All right.
No, I mean, I think really the only thing, and I'm sure we'll touch on it, but, like, there's a lot of talents that kind of should, in theory, amplify the first tier set that we're working with.
Okay.
And they're all just not strong enough. It kind of feeds back into the tier set is very weak, as well, and kind of all the things that you think should help it just don't do anywhere near.
Great.
Enough.
We will be grading tier set later, and we can talk about all of that then.
Perfect.
All right, cool. All right, hero talents. Let's start with Conduit, because I think Conduit was the one I initially read, and just as like a stupid fucking melee brain idiot, I just read like 4-second channel, and I was like, this thing cannot be good. But then after playing with Conduit of the Celestials, I actually think it's one of the cooler, more thematic trees in the entire game. And it's also really powerful, provides some like cool gameplay additions that wouldn't exist otherwise. And maybe, I can't tell... I've played a lot of different melee specs, and it's hard to compare hero talents from one spec to another, because sometimes they can be trying to compare different things. But Conduit just seems so good, partly because Shadowpan feels like, I mean, it is probably among the worst hero talent trees in the entire game as well. So it's like the duality of that as a Windwalker is so strange. But just starting with Conduit, what are your all's thoughts?
It was so I've been giving feedback on Conduit since the alpha. Um, it's come a long way, and it seems like the brunt of the feedback, like and like the work they put into hero talents for Windwalker at least, was in Conduit. They like made the procs more interesting, like on Flight of the Crane and the Black Ox proc. Um, it's pretty cool. The Conduit is channeled by your spirits, so there's some kind of synergy there. It gives you basically like juice serenity essentially when you use the ability with Unity Within and Heart of the Jade Serpent. It's
I love Heart of the Jade Serpent. I think Heart of the Jade Serpent is so cool.
Mhm.
Not even in your like cooldown window, but the proc you get of that outside of your cooldown window is actually like really refreshing too.
I mean, it feels really good on single target. Like when all your cooldowns line up, it feels really good. It's interesting because it's a 1.5 minute cooldown. So with Zwen's Bond on our tree and the buffs to it, you could theoretically go down to 1.5 minutes on Zwen, so you could sync those things. The one downside of this is that you desync yourself from PI and like AUG buffs and stuff, but being able to be a 90-second class in theory is kind of neat, having flexibility there. But yeah, this tree is a lot of fun when you do your single target stuff. And AoE, it's a little bit clunky, but it's still all right, I think.
Okay. What about you, Babs?
Yeah, I agree. I think it definitely, when they first got revealed, I shared your concerns of like, oh man, here's a channel like this is gonna suck. And my first thought was, please don't let this be the raid talent setup. Like, let's stick with Shadowpan, in raids, and we'll stick with Conduit in Mythic Plus and AoE and stuff like that. It's definitely not as disruptive as I expected it to be, and part of that is because it hit so hard, especially on short fights.
Surprisingly
like
hard, yeah.
Big amount of damage. That is for me, I think, my biggest concern. The theme is really cool. I think the whole execution of that theme is really, really well done. I definitely like the faster, Fists of Fury channeling, because it happens when you feel like you need it. It's not like you're just channeling faster and then sitting there for an extra 2 seconds. Like it's happening when you need it the most, which I think is the best. But I think my concern, because Shadowpan is mostly passive, really entirely passive, and Conduit has that kind of big spell. Even if Shadowpan is numerically stronger, I think it's going to be hard for people to see it, because the damage from Shadowpan kind of comes spread out through other little tiny things. How much it buffs this, how much it buffs that. Whereas Conduit is a lot more visible. So that's kind of my concern, just from a Discord and people's confusion standpoint. If they were to be balanced in a way, but Shadowpan right now is just so like hilariously not good enough that's not even like, that problem is so far down the road.
Okay, let's actually transition to that. So let's just go ahead and cook on Shadowpan for a little bit here. What are your all's main concerns with Shadowpan? Because I have some parts of it to where if there were some changes and it was tuned better, there are some parts of it I think that are actually pretty cool. But like what is holding down this spec?
Mainly just like mechanically it does not function. It feels like it doesn't function correctly with flurry strikes. So the problem is you cast one ability and the cap of flurry strikes is 10 and you hit the cap immediately, right? But then you need to spend 400 energy, which is like 8 tiger palms, to spend the charges. That feels like that loop is broken. It feels like you're supposed to either have a way higher cap on stacks, or like the energy required to spend needs to be like halved at the very least, or it should just spend the charges as soon as you hit the cap. Because I think the whole point of it is that you're generating all these stacks, it's all passive. Really the choice between these two hero talents, going back to like the Spectre, it feels like SCF versus Serenity again, where it's like, do you want a more passive, chill option that's just kind of like base monk kind of, but a little bit better, or do you want one that's like crazy gameplay change with Conduit? But Shadowpan just is like, they need to change how flurry strikes work. You need to generate them faster, or sorry, you need to spend them faster, increase the cap, or just have them spend immediately upon hitting max stacks.
Yeah, that's exactly my concern, with it as well. I think to a certain extent, if you look at the kind of the real strong fantasy, and theme of Conduit, I think Shadowpan actually really does a good job of focusing on the theme of Shadowpan, which is, that the Shadowpan, they're just kind of enhanced monks. And I know lore-wise they have other, quote, classes in there, but they're not a super flashy or magical order and group of individuals. So like, I think you kind of got that a little bit, but it doesn't really excuse the fact that it's just kind of meh, like J Funk said, you generate things way too fast for the rate that you spend them with the cap. So, there's a lot of kind of real clear and hopefully obvious changes, to kind of help them hit wherever they want it to be. But at the same time, since implemented, it really has just gotten further away from usable with the changes that they've made. So it's hard to tell what they're trying to do, or if it even will get the attention and work it needs to be a viable option.
Okay.
I feel like it hasn't changed very much since alpha. I'm giving the same feedback in alpha that I gave now. But I chalked it up in alpha that I was like maybe like a weird level scaling thing or something. But yeah, to be clear, I want to spend stacks faster. I don't want them to slow it down. If they slow it down, it feels really bad. Because one of the recent changes they made to this, the most recent change, is they reduced the rate at which you generate, which did not matter because you still cap in one Fist of Fury. Because they wanted to like alleviate or like change the skill gap or something. It was a weird dev note. It did not make any sense. But I want to like spend stacks faster. I want to be like constantly flurry striking or something, so that I have more stacks as Wisdom of the Wall buff. One thing I did not mention is that also on this tree, the defensive nodes are ass. They are some of the worst defensive nodes I've seen.
Yeah,
they are so very bad. I think the Whirling Steel one on the right side, I don't know if it's still the case, but it was just like adding to your current avoidance, which was like, okay, this is not very useful. And then the predictive training, it has a degenerative potential because you have a talent on your class tree that gives you a guaranteed dodge. So you could theoretically taunt something to proc this DR. But that feels really bad as a Windwalker. Obviously, as Brewmaster, we're shared with Brewmaster, it feels fine, but
I can assure you, anyone who did Tendril this tier will tell you that almost any time you are taunting a boss on purpose in raid, it is a very uncomfortable and bad experience. So yeah, first of all, welcome Trill. Trill just got done doing a raid. You came in at the perfect time, by the way. We were talking about Shadowpan hero talent.
Shadowpan, oh yeah, nice.
So I don't know if you have any takes on that.
Actually, the dodge and parry talent for PvP is actually really nice. I know that because of Turbo Fist.
Get out of there with that.
That's like
yeah, that's terrible though. Like that's the thing that like almost every other classes, some hero talent defenses, which actually this is a game-wide issue in general. Not gonna rant on that now, but like some of the defensives are like extremely powerful, right? Not to say that monks necessarily need that, but like seeing a node, when you look at hero talent and its defensive node basically does nothing in PvE, that's bad. And I don't think it being good in PvP is a solution for that, especially when there's choice nodes to solve that exact problem and it doesn't do that, right? So I definitely think that's bad. I mean, when I first started playing this, the thing that I kind of liked is like, oh, Wisdom of the Wall is like a little random. It's not always going to line up exactly when you want it to on like a raid fight. And that was like, okay, and then that kind of works with Monk because Monk, it kind of wasn't like this with Skyreach and Bone Dust Brew because you had a 2-charge cooldown that you actually saved for the 1-minute window anyway, right? So it kind of like removed that variability. And then this tree also gives you extra CDR on Storm, Earth, and Fire. So it's like, okay, you're kind of playing around Wisdom of the Wall rather than you're playing around cooldowns, which like seems like a cool idea that they totally don't hit. That it just doesn't play like that. And Wisdom of the Wall is like honestly kind of frustrating rather than something that you play around and you think is really cool, because I think on its own it's actually pretty solid. But yeah, this just doesn't. And also, didn't they just kind of not get maybe they've changed some of the visuals, but like think about, and I think theme is super important in hero talents. I think Conduit of Celestials theme is like, for what they're trying to do and what's available to them in Monk, is almost a 10 out of 10 in theme. And I feel like Shadowpan is something that people, if you were to list cool Monk aesthetics, Shadowpan is in the top 3 for that, I think, before these were released. But they totally missed that, in my opinion. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, what does it mean to be Shadowpan? Because, I mean, playing the MOP remix, right? Shadowpan are mages and rogues and all this, like, shaman, all different classes. When I thought Shadowpan, I thought, oh, they're going to make it like a summon thing or something. I was kind of worried about that. But, I mean, I don't think that the the theme of Shadowpan is interesting, but I think maybe like the tree does not match up with Shadowpan, at least in my mind. But it's like the tree is fine in terms of design by itself. I think being able to talent into funnel, if it's good, is just like that's really really good.
Oh yeah.
I think the theme is supposed to be skilled martial artist. Like just that's your thing. And then like the Celestials thing is just like, you know.
But shouldn't you just see like a
a
nice like sun hat panda come down every now and then and just look like an absolute beast? Like, have you seen the I think it's Deathbringer animations with like the scythes all the time when you're playing Deathbringer hero talent? Like, I just feel like there could be something where it's like, holy fuck, I got my gang of Shadowpan with me, you know? Like, I feel like they missed on that for sure.
They did make the visuals of the flurry strikes themselves better, but they never proc, so you don't ever see it.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue with the tree is that just like it takes way too long to spend 400 energy, especially with how weak the Wisdom of the Wall buffs are.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Shadowpan, a successful version of Shadowpan for me, and I think there's some issues with how different gameplay-wise this would be with Conduit, but you're getting extra CDR. Like, let's just say there's a world where you're running, fuck, I'm trying to find the choice node. The one where you can get a reduction, Spiritual Focus, right? You're running Spiritual Focus and you're running the Shadowpan thing, so you're getting like double CDR. I'm talking like you are the do damage all the time class. You have Storm, Earth, and Fire up just all the time, and like that is a profile that is super, super fucking good in like every portion of PvE in this game. And like, and then you could kind of play around a stronger version of Wisdom of the Wall, and that playstyle to me sounds fun. Like, Wisdom of the Wall procs were popping off. It's not the same time it proc last pull. It's not as random and stuff as it is now. And then, like, you're just kind of a class that's just always having a good portion of damage coming out. And I think that could be fun. But this just misses that. Not to mention the defensive node and the theme being off. But do you guys think that this is, like, kind of just... You're just saying it's cooked design-wise. Like, obviously what they could do is just do some numbers tuning to Shadowpan and make it way better. I mean, with Heroic Week this time around, I think before like the real season starts, you know, like they could have these hero talents tuned a lot easier than like tuning Covenants were or tuning Spectres were and stuff like that. So I have some hope, but I still think design wise it isn't very fun.
I think Wisdom. Sorry, real quick. I think Wisdom is a deck of card system. So if you're getting a lot of procs of Flurry Strikes constantly, it wouldn't be that random. You probably have like 2-3 Wisdoms at the same time, which would feel fine, I think.
Were you gonna say, Trill?
It would be, oh, that would be fine if the other two effects even did anything. Like, the Flurry Strike one doing shadow damage would be fine if it reprocced over itself, but the Mastery one only benefiting from like your actual Mastery rating is an issue. And then, like, obviously the best one is the crit damage percent because you stack crit. But I was gonna say I think that Shadowpan is just gonna be one of the first like hero trees that just gets redesigned, like in like 10.0 points or 1107 or like 11.1 or something like that. You know, where it's just like they just missed the mark and they had to completely redesign it so that it's like even viable. I don't feel like they can actually change a number on it besides making it hit for like 1,000,000 damage every time you flurry or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, I mean that's, I think, pretty much universally accepted as Shadowpan just totally missed, and I think it's too close to the expansion for there to be hope that it'll be completely remade and well done before the first patch. I think this is a post-expansion release issue, but at least, at the very least, and this is not maybe great for a lot of people, but you will have a really good and I think one of the best quality hero talents in the game to play outside of it, which I guess is good, even though it kind of doesn't really give you a lot of choice, but it's gonna kind of put you there. All right, so I want to give you guys each some space here before we grade Blizzard. Trill, you came in a little late. We already talked about positive, negative change from Dragonflight. We talked about spec and class trees. We are going to grade all of these at the end of this. Very simple grades, just like A, B, C, D, F, like you're in school. Shout out to all the EU people who use a completely different grading scale. We'll be using ours. And then during those grades, you can give your grade of, let's just say you give them a D for the class tree or whatever. You could then explain kind of why in a more truncated way. So you'll still be able to get your points across if you want to. But I want to start with this, and I want to start with Babylonius. You are hired at Blizzard Entertainment. Your only job is Windwalker Monk. You are given your first week. You are asked by your boss, what is the first thing you want to accomplish when you can change Windwalker Monk? It could be anything about the class. What would you do in that week?
So a big part of what I would answer to this question, would have been different a year ago. A lot of the under the hood changes and scaling changes would have been top on my priority. For me personally, and it's a rather contentious topic, but I would slow it down a lot more, the way that it had been in the past, and put a lot more oomph into the abilities rather than kind of getting closer and closer to, being that really spammy class again, and kind of go back to things hitting hard, making it feel like every punch and kick is really worthwhile. And I think that would be something that I would like to see. And I think really, I mentioned earlier the change to Whirling Dragon Punch and making it, proc, like a proc that happens rather than a button you have to press. That I really like. I think continuing to kind of cut down on the number of buttons. But I would really like, and we're a little bit closer, but I think I would take a hard look at a lot of the class or the spec and really look at, the name Windwalker. We don't have a lot of wind-based, or, we have Strike of the Windlord and, and stuff like that, and Whirling Dragon Punch, but I think we've really gotten away from a lot of that in the past. And I would like to kind of focus on putting the wind back in Windwalker. But I advocated back in Legion when they moved survival into melee to move Windwalker out to range. So I have a very unique take on what I think would be a fun thing for the class.
All right, I appreciate it. J-Funk, you're a Blizzard developer. You can do whatever you want to the class. What are you doing?
So I have two categories for this. One is the more realistic answer of what you can change right now. One is more outlandish of like what I would change, but they deal with like specific stuff. I think right now I would delete Jade Fire Stomp. I think that thing has no place in the tree, and I don't know. It's like floundering as an ability. I don't understand where they're going with it. I would move Emperor's Capacitor over in its spot. I'd add more Emperor's Capacitor nodes, and then I'd move Jade Ignition down where Emperor's Capacitor was. Add some nodes off that. So that's like the big AOE thing. Probably move Darting Hurricane.
I think that might happen too, because like they changed a lot of what made Jade Fire Stomp horrible from last expansion, like the fact that you had to stand in it and that it reset and that it was like a 10% damage maintenance buff that like you had to always keep up, but you had to wait on it, stuff like that. So like if they make all those changes, which were really bad parts of the button, but they realize it's still bad and doesn't really have a place, maybe it is not too far off down the line that it could be replaced. I
think the more outlandish answer is I would make SCF back to the WAD version, and I'd make Tiger Eye Brew the main cooldown again. And then in addition, I'd want Windwalker to be more combo focused. I feel like it's gotten lost a lot in the identity recently. Like hit combo now is not a combo. It's a maintenance buff. That's 30 seconds. Of course, like I want more combo feeling. Like the only combo feeling we have right now is the AOE like dance proc into the blackout kick proc stuff. Like that feels cool and different, like a combo. That's what I'd want.
Man, I definitely resonate with that. There's been multiple times in my time playing WoW, and I've always played Windwalker, where I'm like, I miss that because there's nothing else in the game that does that, right? Even like casters that have the ability to do really well on spread out 3 target dots are nothing like what they were in BFA or Legion, right? Like dots as an idea has been nerfed so much to where like Windwalker could have a unique damage profile that excelled there, but it also wasn't bad on AoE, right? Where they kind of just made Storm, Earth, and Fire into like I think they were really upset with the fact that it really didn't do anything on single target, and they were like, this has to also be a single target cooldown, and then they changed it to what it is. But I don't disagree with you. I think that was a really cool time. And I also really enjoyed Tiger Eye Brew. I mean, actually, this is probably not super relatable, but like I think the most fun I ever had with Monk was the Throne of Thunder Mastery Rune of Rejuvenation Tiger Eye Brew. It was super different, but like really, really fun. Or even the first season of Heimall, first season of WoD, where you had that PvP 2 set, and that gave you so many extra chi explosions, and your uptime on Tiger Eye Brew went up by so much. Like that playstyle was so fun in Raid. So
in the rework that I made last year, I made Mark of the Crane and SCF a choice node. So it was either AoE or Cleave.
Mm-hmm. I like that. All right, Trill. What if you're a dev at Blizzard, you can change anything about Windwalker. What's the first thing you do?
Well, I'm gonna agree with J-Funk and delete Jade Fire Stomp entirely, and Darting Hurricane. I think they were both like attempts to fix like the problems that they originally had, like Jade Fire Stomp, making it a static CD. There's also a node where you get to like cast it at the end of your Fist of Fury like automatically, but I just think that the spell just doesn't fit Windwalker at all. And I don't know where Darting Hurricane was going, but that's definitely out of there. I feel like Crackling Jade Lightning should be castable while moving. I think that would make that spell a lot more applicable in any real setting. Maybe even uninterruptible too, just so that.
Dude,
like,
you know what?
Like usable in PvP
you know
too.
what that reminded me of? I remember someone in my chat when this was mentioned before you got here, and I think it's an excellent point. And someone in my chat was like, there needs to be a time where you plan around staying still, like that's a skill thing. And then that reminded me that that's what people used to say when Fist of Fury couldn't be cast while moving, like you just had to plant to cast fists. And no one, that's such a ridiculous argument as a really fast melee spec that you should have to plan around like staying still for an extended period of times. Like imagine how bad people would feel if Con of the Celestials was standing still. It'd be horrible, right? Like so I completely agree with you, and it would add a lot of viability. Anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off. You can keep going.
No, it's fine. I also, well, actually, I'm gonna go on a tangent on that real quick. Fist of Fury not being castable while moving was also in a time where it was actually like a DPS loss to cast Fist of Fury for the most part. Like there were times where you could snapshot it, and it would be a gain, but for the most part, casting Fist of Fury and Mob was a DPS loss. So I think it was okay for it to be not often used. Like you could have periods of time where it was good to cast it. But,
yeah, but that's also bad. Like the thing that costs the most chi of your entire kit and also has the penalty of standing still not being something that does absolutely the most of your damage is like a design disaster, right?
Yeah, I was always not a big fan of Fist of Fury. I feel like that was one of my least favorite spells. Like it's like a really good theme spell, but in practice, like the spell, I feel like just lacks. Like I would prefer to have like 3-second channel fist, but only have 4 ticks, something like that. I feel like would make the spell feel a lot better and in like a natural rotation. But one of my things too was, I agree with J-Funk. Go back to Tiger Eye Brew. I think Tiger Eye Brew just as a stack function was way better. With like old Chi Brew and stuff like that, just having stacks on demand still, like having a way to get stacks on demand, but for the most part having it be like you can sit on stacks and use them when you want. But I also kind of liked the older system of like 40 energy jab and 2 chi blackout kick. I feel like that was
interesting.
A lot smoother. I actually don't like the cooldown reduction on blackout kick for RSK and Fist of Fury. I feel like it's a bad mechanic. You could probably also make Whirling Dragon Punch, just remove RSK from Whirling Dragon Punch, just make it Fist of Fury only.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Well.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, about how if not that, something like you have like a 3 to 5 second window after making Whirling Dragon Punch available where no matter what you can press it and you don't have to, if one of those other things cools down, as a way to solve that as well.
I also feel like I just made this up off the top of my head, but you could actually potentially make like Strike of the Windlord and Whirling Dragon Punch like a choice node, and then you have like just make Strike into like this giant, like, I don't want to say secret technique kind of spell, but just like have something else to differentiate like single target and AOE. And then I guess feeding back into like the two chi blackout kick thing, I think Old Serenity was actually like pretty fun too, and maybe there's like some other things you could do with Old Serenity where
Old Serenity like when
you refund chi when you use a spell.
Okay.
That was like Wad Serenity.
Yeah, it was Warlords.
So it was that. Maybe I could play around with that again. I don't remember disliking that spell. I think it was pretty fun to play with. But
all right, you are cooking in your first week at Blizzard. You are fucking.
Yeah, I'm cooking. Yeah, a lot of that I just kind of made up on the fly, but in general, I'm not like unhappy with War Within Windwalker tree, but I think there are still a lot of improvements that can be made to it.
Okay. We're going to move on to grading. So for this, I'm going to go in order of Babylonius, then J-Funk, then Trill for every single category. Your answer can very simply be the letter grade you give them, or if you want to elaborate on why, you guys absolutely have the space to do that. So don't feel like I'm rushing you. Before going to the next person, you can kind of elaborate as much or as little as you want. All right, so starting with the class the class tree for Windwalker. If you are to grade the developers' changes and the overall state of the current class tree for Windwalker Monk, what grade would you give it, Babylonius?
I'd say B minus. I think there's some things that could do better. I think the bottom of the tree has some cool stuff that it's hard to get to just because of points. But a B minus I think is a solid grade.
Okay, J-Funk?
You say class tree, you mean like the monk class tree, right?
The monk class tree. Yep.
I think if they sort out I'd give it like a B plus. I think if they sort out like the pressure point bug stuff, then it might be a little bit better. We could use a little bit more powerful utility on the tree, because I mean, that might be a problem later on. But yeah, B plus.
Trill?
I'm gonna give it an A. I think it deserves an A. I think it's definitely way better than the Dragonflight version of the tree. I think there's a lot of like little micro adjustments to the tree you can make in specific situations, like even something as minor as picking the Soothing Mist node next to it just to an extra 6% DR when you need it. And it's also your target too. You can make someone else take 6% less as well as yourself. So I think that's like a really cool thing you can do with it. I think bounce back is a lot easier to get if it actually worked properly. Maybe it does now. I'm not sure. I haven't tested it. I think they cooked a lot. I would have given the Dragonflight tree like a C, but I think this is pretty solid.
All right, great. All right, I'm really interested in this. The spec tree, the Windwalker spec tree, both the changes that were made going into this expansion, but also the current, just the state of the spec tree. How much choice, how many options, how good do the buttons feel? How cool are the new things they add? General grade for the spec tree, Babylonius.
I'm gonna say a solid A. I think again, a couple little bits and tweaks, but given the state of it before and the improvement, I think a solid A.
Okay, J-Funk?
I'm gonna give it a B. There's a couple things, like the capstone stuff bothers me a little bit, and I think for me personally, I don't like having to play Dance of Chi-Ji in all situations. I think it homogenizes the rotation a little bit, and I don't like that. And I think some of the tuning of the nodes, like you mentioned Spiritual Focus, they nerfed it by the half going into this expansion, so it's not only that great. They could do a little bit better tuning, and I give it a B. I think it's pretty good, but they could improve some stuff if they improve the capstones and all that.
Yeah, actually, I forgot we didn't mention that earlier. I hate that they did that with Spiritual Focus, because Spiritual Focus was so annoyingly locked behind a Touch of Death node this entire expansion for no reason. So it was like super hard to ever get, and it's one of the cooler talents on the tree. It's like, if you're talking about, of all spec trees in the game, when you have that extra point you can spend that you want it to be fight specific, is there anything that could be possibly better than that, than Spiritual Focus? Like, oh, my cooldown isn't quite up for this thing. Oh, I would actually want to have an extra cooldown available for this thing. Oh, I don't need this on this fight. I can actually go Drinking Horn cover and have more strong cooldown windows, whatever. Like, that node is like picture perfect built for the last node you have to spend, and nerfing it kind of puts it out of range of that, and I think that's super lame. So I completely agree with you on that. Trill?
So I think you guys might disagree with me, but not even in terms of how the tree affects the gameplay, but just the tree itself, I think I'm gonna give it an A plus, not quite S, but I think A plus would be okay for me here, because coming from Dragonflight, at least.
Trill, when did your teacher as a kid give you an S on a report card? That is not a fucking grade.
Okay, well this is like school grade A minus.
Go back to school, buddy.
I don't know. Anyway.
Okay, A minus.
I don't know. I just feel like coming from Dragonflight, like the tree was like so cookie cutter. You couldn't change like anything. You pretty much had like one build for everything, pretty much. And now, if you looked at most of the tree, you could probably play almost every single talent in this tree besides like maybe one or two, like, which
we've discussed at length, the ones that you would never want to take, right? So
yeah, I mean, most of them are in the bottom, yeah.
And if you were to look at last expansion, you would see things like Energy Burst and Inner Peace, and you'd be like, oh, well, I'm just never taking anything that affects my resource economy, really, that I don't have to take, like Power Strikes. And then you just never even think about it, and I just think it's refreshing, too, that the class actually wants things that affects the like how quick your rotation is and how much energy you have. And that is definitely that just kind of all ties back into the haste thing, which I think is a universal dub. I don't have a grading specifically for that, but yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, I was a bit disappointed to like feel like some of these AoE talents that I feel like are supposed to feel more impactful kind of don't. Like I almost feel like it's like kind of bait to take the spinning crane kick node just because Fist of Fury is just so much more important to press anyway. Um, that it almost doesn't even feel worth it. Like that's like one issue for me, I think. But outside of that, most of the talents are pretty playable. I'm a bit disappointed as well. It might even be a bug that the Tire Palm node doesn't apply to your Sword and Fire images when you blackout kick. So um, if that actually works, then I think that talent will be a lot better. But currently, it doesn't do that.
Okay, a little bug change, and it's good that you're elaborating a little bit more on these because you skipped or you weren't here for specifically these parts of the tree, because I think a lot of that was mentioned. Like one major thing that was mentioned when you weren't here was that like there isn't enough oomph in AoE that you can talent into. It's like it's all like mid on AoE and it's super good single target, but like they're missing. It's still decent cleave, but it's missing that ability to compete with other classes and burst AoE, which is, like Windwalker has historically been like pretty good for.
Yeah, coming from Shadowlands Windwalker, where you just absolutely delete something with 6 stacks of Mark the Crane, then you come here and it does like nothing. It's very strange.
Yeah, especially with Bone Dust being gone. Yeah, it's weird. Okay. Okay, so overall good for that. All right, moving on to hero talents. Celestial Conduit, Babylonius.
A. Yeah, I was going back and forth between A and A minus. It's an extra button, which irks me, but it's really nice, and the theme is there. The visuals are there. It'd be pretty hard to make it better.
Okay, J-Funk?
I would also give it an A. I do think though that Heart of the Jade Serpent is kind of annoying sometimes when you're trying to line it up with other stuff. But yeah, I think overall an A. It's pretty fun.
Okay. Trill, Conduit.
I'm gonna give this an A too. I think it's really close to being like top tier. I'm a bit disappointed that I mean I don't know if that's just Sims or what, but that it's not worth it to play around Heart of the Jade Serpent. Instead, it's more worth to play around Gale Force. That's like my biggest gripe with the tree. If that didn't exist, then I would probably give it an A plus. I think it's a really fun tree. Like I'm playing it a lot.
So you would like every Heart of the
1.5
Jade
minutes.
Serpent. You would like every Heart of the Jade Serpent outside of like the Giga buffed one you get from Celestial Conduit to just be more impactful.
It's fun to play with. Like just to get that buff and then like Fist of Fury RSK every single GCD. Like that's really fun for me. But in practice, like just playing over it just because you do 10% more damage for 10 seconds is just better.
Okay. What about? All right. So Babylonia, Shadowpan. What is your rating on Shadowpan?
D minus.
Okay, so not a failing grade, so it has some potential, but
yeah, I just think the potential is there, but they got to work pretty hard to get it to a passing grade.
Okay, J-Funk.
I'll give it the same grade, D minus. I think they could fix it. Again, reduce the energy costs of the flurry strikes or whatever. The defensives are also pretty bad, but I mean, if they made it so that it flowed well, the flurry strikes flowed well, and they like buff the defensive nodes, it could be pretty fun, man. So I'll give it a D.
Trill.
I'm gonna give it the same as them. I was close to giving it an F, but I mean, just yeah, there are a lot of issues with the tree, and there's been a lot of feedback on the beta, and it's basically the same tree still.
So D minus now, but probably was an F when the flurry strikes was still based on your HP value, and they moved it up a half rank. Would that be fair?
Sure.
Because I think that was worse.
Yeah, I mean, and it's still, you could make an argument for it being F simply because it's not gotten any help in such an extended period of time. Like the prognosis is F, even if it's in a D minus state right now.
Okay, and then something we haven't spent a lot of time on. Let me pull it up here so I'm fully caught up just in case they've changed it. is I want your all's opinion and to grade and also have some time to talk about the 2 and 4 piece for this upcoming tier. So across the entire game, they were very set on making these very basic, not because of the beginning of last expansion when they did this, when it was about spec trees and stuff. They just want hero talents to be the primary thing you're focusing on and not also tier sets and how they interact with them. So they made them hella basic. So they are supposed to be basic, but they decided to go down the tiger palm thing. I'll read this for people on screen who are not sure of what this is. The 2 pieces, and tell me if this has changed from the article I'm looking at. Tiger palm increases the damage of your next melee ability by 5% as the 2. And the 4 piece is your other melee abilities increase the damage of your next Tiger Palm by 25%, stacking up to 6 times. 15% of the Tiger Palm's damage is dealt onto nearby enemies, reduced beyond 5 targets. And also, some context for that as well is they have added some new talents or hero talents or things to increase Tiger Palm's damage in general. So I think these are clearly like meant to do that. But I think what you were saying, Babylonius, and I'll throw it to you earlier, is that those, or maybe it was J-Funk, one of you were saying it, where it was like that the talents don't do enough to actually incentivize that or change your playstyle at all, but that might not also be what they're going for. Just what would you grade the tier set for what they're going for, Babylonius, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I think I would grade it as an incomplete.
Okay.
I think the rough draft is there. You know, it's clear that they wanted to, you know, it's one of the things people have been saying for a long time, that they would like Tiger Palm to be more than just a, you know, a way to turn energy into chi. And it's clear that that's what they're trying to do. And with the talents, with the tier sets, like, I think the idea is there, but I just don't. It just seems like it stopped. They never made it out of the, you know, the rough outline stage.
Damn. Would you guys be more upset if your teacher gave you an F or an incomplete, just in general, as a student? An incomplete's pretty brutal, right?
I mean, being, maybe, I don't know if the others work at a schools, but maybe the only one who actually works at a school in chat right now. You know, I want to preface by an incomplete is in, like, turn this into me tomorrow and, you know, I'll knock you down, you know, a letter grade or something like that. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. That's like, it's like
yeah.
The teacher's disappointed in you. You didn't do what they asked you to do. It's crazy BM.
I think it depends on whether or not you know that it's incomplete or not. If you turn this in, go and think, yeah, I cooked, this is great, here it is, final thing, and the teacher goes, yeah, no, you take this back and you finish it, that'd hurt.
Okay.
That's what we should have given Shadowpan.
An incomplete, yeah, actually, probably. All right.
Probably.
J-Funk, what is your opinion on the tier?
Are we letter grading it or just opinions?
Letter graded and opinion.
I give it like a C or C minus. I think I just want them to try new things with design for Windwalker tier sets. I feel like Dragonflight had this problem too, where every tier set feels like the same thing. Where it's like Fist of Fury buffs this thing or RSK buffs this thing. It's just like, just try, like, go something else. Like, do something more creative with the tier sets. This doesn't necessarily accomplish that, but at least they're trying something, maybe. I do think, though, like, I think it's like 4% damage increase or something. It's really bad. And also, like, there's not a whole lot of tuning hooks that aren't annoying. So, like, the 2-piece, what is the tuning hook there? It's just increase the damage that the next melee ability does after Tiger Palm. But if I have to press Tiger Palm before every major ability, that's gonna feel like ass. So, yeah, I don't know. It's not great. It could be better.
All right, Trill.
I actually like them trying to beef up Tiger Palm some. I feel like the spell was, like, for how much I had to cast it, felt really lackluster to press. I'm gonna give it a B. I'm gonna, like, just go ahead and say that obviously it's a very weak right now and it doesn't do anything. I was able to get like a 2 mil Tiger Palm crit with everything up, but, you know, outside of those, like, you know, very niche scenarios, you know, it definitely lacks some punch. But I think it's okay if you don't have to, like, play around it too much. And you know, teaching's going up to 8 stacks now with the talent for it. You know, and the other Tiger Palm talent, I think they synergize together really well. But the numbers just aren't there still for some reason.
Okay. All right. So this is very subjective and you guys can elaborate on this as much as you want, but I want you guys to grade how fun you think Windwalker is to play in the new expansion. So this is purely you are grading the designer's ability. Maybe this can be what you're going to play via Sims. This can be what you would like to play. This is very subjective. Like, what fun rating would you give them for how fun Windwalker is to play in this expansion?
Oh man, again, I talked about this earlier. I like things to be slower. It's going to get a little faster again with a lot of the Conduit stuff. So I still think it's probably an A, with like a, right on that border of A plus. It really feels really good. I think it feels better now in like when I play it in pre-patch than on beta, with adding Conduit and all that other kind of nuance that comes with it. But I think it feels great. I think the improvements have been there. There's obvious room to grow still. But I think we're coming from a really low point in terms of feel between Shadowlands and then Dragonflight. So anything is going to seem like the grass is greener, but really high A, low A plus, 96% or wherever the cutoff is.
That's very good news. All right, J-Funk, what is your opinion?
I know I'm always the doomer here, so I'll preface this with this. In your cooldowns on single target, I would say it's A+. It's super fun, super interactive. Outside of your cooldowns on single target, like maybe A-, it's kind of a little bit boring. And then an AOE, I'd say like maybe B+. I don't know. AOE just seems like it's missing some sauce somewhere for me personally, but
okay, that's fine. So overall, you'd probably put it like an A-, maybe all things included, or a B+.
Yeah, I'd say A-. It's fair.
A-, including all of the facets of it. Okay, cool. All right, Trill, what's your opinion? Fun, and you can also you can even throw in like some PvP angle to this, because I think that would be an interesting take.
That would drag it down.
That's fine. You can mention that at the end. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say the same thing as J-Funk. I think it like single target A+. But I have to give it a lower overall because the AoE is definitely not as fun as it used to be. It's seriously lacking. And then on top of that, like the loss of Skyreach in PvP is very bad. I can't attack anyone.
Really, even with
really
even with all the gap closing class tree stuff.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything to a mage. It's gonna be like a B- in PvP or a C+ or something like that. I think.
Okay.
Just fun wise. I mean, it might be strong, but I want to say that in general, like the way like Warrior of the Dawn plays and the haste scaling and stuff that they added, like I'm really pleased with that. But I was unhappy with Babylonius was saying, like the oomph of the abilities is not there. Like I feel like I tickle people when I attack them, or even bosses and stuff. Like with CDs up, it's great. Without CDs up, feels like I'm not doing anything, which is maybe gear will help that, but for right now, it doesn't feel like the abilities you press actually do anything outside of your CDs.
Okay, and then the last grade we're gonna give is an idea on the strength or viability of the class going into Season 1. This can always change. This may be outdated in literally next reset with changes they make. This is not very serious. No one should take like their ability to like want to play this class based on this or whatever. And Trill, you are not allowed to answer this question or give a grade for this. Babylonius, what is your opinion on the strength and viability? What is the grade you would give Blizzard on Windwalker for that in Season 1?
I think probably a B+ with room to go up or down depending on tuning.
Okay, and that's for all like just kind of combined. Do you feel in Raid or Mythic Plus they may be different?
Yeah, I mean it definitely, we've lived a long time of being an A or an A+ Mythic Plus spec, so I think anything similar to kind of the reverse of the playstyle. Anything less than that is going to suck. So I think it really Raid, I think B+, maybe A-, and then Mythic Plus probably B- or C+. I don't do too much Mythic Plus, so I'll certainly defer, in that regard to J-Funk because he focuses a lot more on that. But definitely between the two, Mythic Plus and AOE has got to be rated lower than single target.
All right, J-Funk, what's your opinion?
I think it depends on if like some classes are good or not, because I think PI will be a big deal for this class on single target at least.
Oh, really?
Could be.
I think
Look
it's
at
really
that.
good. I think on single target and like raids, it's A or like A minus, probably like A. It's really good. Depends on tuning later on, but its burst damage on single target is crazy. But in like cleave fights, like Brood Twister and stuff, it's not that good. You just kind of just hit the boss. That's all you really can do. And then like Silken Core, it's kind of weird with the cleave, so I don't really know there. But on single target, it's like A. I think in Mythic Plus, maybe like B minus or C plus. It's kind of just whatever in Mythic Plus. It's fine, but it's not exceptional anywhere. It's just all right.
Well, I think Mythic Plus is so weird to rate because the way groups are formed in WoW, and with there being like 39 specs, close to 30 DPS specs, and there only being 3 spots, if everyone would be, if it was true that you were happy if you were average in Mythic Plus, most of the time like 50% of the class would be happy, but the reality is you're only happy if you're in like the top like 90% of Mythic Plus classes, right? Like, because those are the only ones that are realistically going to get invited to keys of a certain level. So that's like always, it's like whether you cross this threshold, and it has to do with stops and defensives and all kinds of things that aren't
If
even...
you're melee or ranged.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you scale with Arcane Intellect and like the whole comp, this expansion, all that shit. Yeah, so super weird in that regard, but mention that for raid. I just wouldn't like, the reason why I'm not having Trill respond is because as we've started damage testing and we've done harder bosses on raid testing, he's either incentivized to tell you something he's not supposed to tell you, which is how strong we think his class is, or he is misleading you, in which case I'm putting him in a position to lie or be sneaky, which is weird. So it just doesn't make sense. But you can talk about PvP if you want, because I don't give a fuck about that.
I don't know. It might be good. I don't know. I haven't played it enough.
Do you
know if it's good or not.
Is there a big PvP like community that like plays beta and like figures out how beta PvP is going to be ahead of time, similar to PvE, or do you kind of just rip it when the expansion starts?
There's a lot of people queuing beta right now.
Okay. All right,
Like
cool.
people doing Soul Shuffle and stuff.
All right. Fuck yeah.
This is completely unrelated, but as far as like AoE goes, do you guys feel like, because you know, we're coming from expansions where you don't press RSK at all in AoE unless you have like less than 4 or 5 targets or something. Do you guys feel like a buff when you cast RSK to increase the damage of your next spinning crank kick would be good?
I mean, I think anything, or most things that, kind of tie one ability into another so that we fight that kind of constant urge to start dropping things from the priority is good. But in that, when you're going to be casting Rising Sun Kick anyway for like a Whirling Dragon Punch, but yeah, I'd much rather, I think, kind of Spinning Crane Kick get a little more to stand on its own 2 feet, or come from Strike of the Windlord, or Fist of Fury, something like that, rather than Rising Sun Kick.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want Crane Kick to be better by itself. Like Mark of the Crane needs to be like 8 stacks or something. I want Mark stacks to matter, because it still feels like they don't really matter. Maintaining 5 is really easy still.
It feels like Spinning Crane Kick has remained nerfed because of Blackout Brews, or Black... What that was called?
Bone Dust Brew.
Dude, holy shit. Bone Dust Brew existence, but then Bone Dust Brew doesn't exist, which should allow Spinning Crane Kick to have higher potency on its own, right? So I just think that's something. I mean, also, I feel like if you were to tell me at the end of last expansion they were going to remove AoE Touch of Death, the very first thing I would tell you is, man, they're going to really have to look at how Windwalker does AoE, because they weren't able to really do that a lot because of AoE Touch of Death's potency last expansion. So it's not surprising to me that seems missing from the class, because there was just this giant meme AoE source that was removed, and maybe they haven't fully cooked that. But
yeah, exactly. I think it's the memory of, Soul Render and some of those other bosses in Shadowlands has got to be, got to pop up anytime they think about buffing Spinning Crane Kick or making tweaks to it.
Yeah, that was a good time.
all right, I think that I think that about wraps up our time here. Thanks, Trill, for popping in late. And then again, Babby and J-Funk. It's been years now since I've brought you guys on to talk anything about Windwalker stuff. And this is, and for whatever it's worth for chat, Windwalker is going to be my, like, that is my class I'm looking forward to maining. It's been one of my favorite specs of all time, and I really enjoy the current playstyle. I didn't give a lot of my opinions on here. Not that they really matter, but I'm like really looking forward to playing this spec as like my main character. So super excited about that. And also, because you guys rated them doing decently well currently, if this class gets nerfed next beta build after that happened to DKs after I talked to them last time, I'm never doing one of these ever again. So just throwing that out there that I can't deal with the smoke.
It wouldn't be the first time I got Windwalker nerfed.
Yeah,
So.
I was gonna say.
No, Windwalker already got nerfed.
There was the clip of me one-shotting the boss in Necrotic Wake because of Bone Dust Brew, and they got changed like the day after or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just putting it out there. All right, thanks for the call, guys.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having us on.
Yep. See you guys.
GG's.
Yep, GG's. All right. Second class talk done. Enjoyed it. What is it? I'd like to know why Windwalker is so named, but they cannot walk on the air. Well, can't they kinda like they give wind walking to people so they move faster? Is the bit with that the wind is just aiding your steps? It's speeding you up. The wind is at your back. I don't get. Dude, someone in that call mentioned Windlord. I think it was Babylonius. He was like, I'd put the wind back in Windwalker. I'm like, shit, I never thought about that before. They should just be like fucking throwing wind at people. It'd be hype. Max, do you want to do a druid talk at some point? Not really. I want to wait till they get buffed a little bit so they're not so down bad, because it would just be such a downer. I would love to talk to a bunch of druids about their opinion on their class tree. That would be a fucking good little 20 minutes of my stream. I mean, their class tree is actually fucking dog shit. It's so bad. Oh, man. Max, you asked the question, but what they would change in a week if they worked at Blizzard, what would you change? I don't know, probably nothing. The thing is I'm too stupid to where, like, I'm sure I would have some ideas on what I'd want to change, but, like, there's a reason I'm not a class designer, and, like, I'd probably end up ruining something else. Like, I guarantee no matter how good my intentions are, like, if they announced that I would be allowed to make changes to Windwalker, a lot of you guys would be like, yay, fucking let's go. And then I'd be like, guys, this is not good. Like, I'm going to fucking ruin everything. Like, it is guaranteed going to be worse than what it was. Because I never think about the consequences. Like, whenever you're, like, an armchair developer, you're just like, yeah, this would be cool. But then you don't think about, like, what you'd have to change to accommodate that and what else would break. You just fucking make shit up. It goes hard. What is it, Max? Saying you're too stupid as a raid leader or a top 2 guild in the world of WoW is the dumbest take I've ever heard. That's not dumb. I'm good at what I'm good at. I think what would be dumb is assuming that I would be good at other things I've never tried to do because I randomly am good at leading large groups of people when what I'm doing is not that. Right? I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. It's the Peter principle. You're really, really good at sales, and then you get promoted to manage other salesmen, but you have no skills to do that. That's what people do in big companies. I'm really good at strategizing raid fights, and I'm really good at managing large groups of people. That's what I'm good at. That does not mean I would have any idea how to design a WoW class. Or even a raid fight, right? I mean, even look at raid leading. Like, I'm really good at raid leading. I know that. But you know what I was at raid leading before I did it a lot? Really bad at it. I was really bad at it, and then I got really good at it. That's what happens. So, like, my first week of being a WoW class designer would almost certainly go so badly. But maybe I'd be good at it one day. But, like, I only get 1 week, so it's just all going to be bad. Max is good at knowing people who are good at that? Yeah, I mean, I would like to say I'm good at delegating, but what does good at delegating even mean? It just means anytime you're not great at something, you just find someone who is and let them do it. I guess that's a skill, but it seems pretty easy to me. Wait, did either of them mention shadowboxing treads not applying Mark of the Crane? No, they didn't. People in the chat mentioned it. Actually, they might have mentioned it. I know chat was going off about that for sure. But yeah, it is important to mention that the cleave from Blackout Kick applies Mark of the Crane, but AoE Blackout Kick does not AoE apply Mark of the Crane, which is really, really stinky. I think it was something they did to, again, combat the amount of resources. You get, like, they want you to spend the Tiger Palms to do that, but it does not feel good yet. Babs talked about it indirectly, saying keeping them, yeah. Max, you should be CEO of Blizzard then. Nah, man, that I'd be not good at that. Not quite. I think in general, from my experience as a WoW guild leader guy, I do think there's a lot of successful guild leading things that directly translate to managing a business. But I don't think anyone should trust me with the amount of importance or money as goes into like a company like that at that much money. I'd fucking ruin everything. I probably wouldn't make people do cubicle crawls or whatever, but I can almost assure you that I'd make the stock price go down. I don't know how, but I'd fucking do it. You'd have to please the shareholders. Yeah, that sounds like an absolute nightmare. It comes with big money, but like being a CEO and having to make good decisions for your company while also always sucking up to your shareholders sounds like an absolute nightmare. It sounds super stinky. Max, can you please talk with evokers/augs next? Do us this favor. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to do one of these and then be bored. I don't want to do it and then be asking them questions and then immediately zone out because it means nothing to me. At least with Windwalker, at least with DK, I'm invested in all of those things. Like, as much as you guys say you'd like to just use my platform or use my stream as a platform to, like, say a lot of this stuff and, like, spread information and maybe advocate for changes, like, I promise you guys would be really mad if I was just mailing it the fuck in and asking some questions that I clearly didn't care about. And I kind of want to avoid that. So I'll probably just start with classes that I play. And then if I want to continue or if I'm interested in one of them specifically, I'll do that. I don't want to feel obligated to have to do this for the whole community. That's not me. Like, very least going into the season, I'll do one of those giant streams where I give every class or spec 10 minutes or so. And then they do the arbitrary tier list thing. But, like, as far as, like, a dedicated 2-hour conversation like I just did, probably not. Some of the funniest examples, though, are talking to rogues or demon hunters, two classes that got an extremely small amount of actual changes. So there's nothing really to talk about other than how mad they are about that and then how bad both of those classes' hero talents are. And then just them giving Blizzard a bunch of bad grades. I mean, I feel the DH thing, man. I definitely feel like it's pretty rare when I can identify when people are super, super fucking mad. But I just played months of Demon Hunter in Season 3. It was so fun in PvE. And then, like, I just logged on beta and I was, like, setting up a bunch of different things. And I'm just like, every version of this is less fun than that. Every version of DH that you can possibly play right now is less fun than with the Season 3 and 4 tier set. Like, significantly. Enough so where I just don't even want to play it. And I don't know how you really solve that. Same designer, did they leave Blizzard maybe? No, I mean, I don't think it's really complicated. There might be some people have made up that the person who did the DH and Rogue changes got promoted recently and he started like not working on that, but I don't think that's even like really relevant. It's not a surprise to me that Rogue and DH were two of the least changed classes going into this expansion because they were also the two most recently redone classes at the end of last expansion. So they're literally just at the end of the list and they didn't get through the whole list. Right? That's why they didn't get a lot of changes. It's because not speaking about hero talents as much, but specifically the class and spec tree stuff. Like, I don't think you would have expected those classes to actually get it. What I'm interested in, though, is if this cycle is going to continue next expansion, the one that happened in Dragonflight, where, like, every new season, these two classes get a majorly revamped class and spec tree. I think Rogue and DH are next up on the list for that with Priest. And are they just going to be OP again? Like, that happened every single time last expansion. Like, if your class is getting reworked either in a 0.5, 0.7, or, like, a brand new season, they were advertising it with the season, and they were OP, like, 95%. I think there was one example of a class not being great after they were changed. Like, the God Comp in Season 2, like, after the 0.5 patch, those were all classes that got majorly reworked. Fire got majorly reworked. Holy Paladin got majorly reworked. Guardian Druid got majorly reworked. Og got literally created. It was created in a 0.5 patch somehow. Shadow Priest. I don't remember if Shadow Priest had major reworks or if they were just part of it. I don't remember. But like, all of that just happened from that. And then the next season came out, Season 3. And it was like, okay, Rogues and DHs. All right, well, they were fucking broken. You probably could have ran 3 of each of those in Raid and it would have been this. Right? I just wonder if that's going to continue happening because it's kind of boring, you know? You just know who's going to be good. Adding AUG was one of the biggest crimes ever. Dude, I think AUG is maybe the most polarizing thing Blizzard ever did. You have, like... I mean, there are a ton of people that absolutely love that AUG exists. And there are a ton of people that absolutely hate it. There's not a lot of AUG centrists that are like... Actually, I think I'd consider myself an AUG centrist. I'm, like, okay with AUG's existence, and I don't want them deleted. But I also don't think they're awesome. But I don't think there's a lot of people like that. You usually really like them or really hate them. If you're, like, a top player, like, if you're a high-level raider, if you're a high-level Mythic Pluser, you absolutely despise AUG. Usually, like, pretty high percentage of people. I can't speak for PvP, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that PvPers don't like augmentation. I don't know that, but that just sounds right. But also, I think the main reason that AUG is really disliked by high-level players, it's more in Mythic Plus than anything else. And I really just think that's because they've just been good ever since they've come out. Right? Like, I don't know how much of it is hating AUG as a concept, which there definitely is that. Like, the whole, like, damage meters not being real thing. More of a raid issue, but just, like, kind of annoying. But it's just that they've been broken for that long. Like, if there was any other spec... I mean, Mage has kind of been like this. It has been, like, BIS and Mythic Plus ever since AUG was released. Like, you'd also see a lot of people disliking mages, right? Maybe Mage has some built-in all-time hate because they get a lot of preferential treatment and shit, but I don't know. I think that you see that a lot with different things. You see there's always an aversion to classes when they're too good for too long. Like, for example, right now, would the AUG hate be nearly as strong if AUG wasn't, like, borderline required for Mythic Plus for the past year? Absolutely not. Like, if it wasn't in high Mythic Plus groups, if it wasn't getting invited to every Mythic Plus group, the hate would absolutely not be at the same level. So much of it isn't even to do with AUG. It's just because it's good. Let's see. I think the big issue with it is that if it ever does hit a point where it's not broken, it will be snap buffed because it will make their entire player base their advertising. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Although I think that's more of a dungeon. That's not true in dungeons. Well, I don't know. When you play with not as good AUGs in dungeons, that are like not popping Breath of Eons with people's 2 minutes and stuff. Like they're definitely playing worse. But like the delta between a inexperienced AUG in raid versus an experienced one is an absolute fucking mountain of difference. Like it's crazy how much better AUG is when you optimize it in raid. I think that's the thing they need to nerf. They need to nerf how much you can optimize AUG. They need to like literally, it sounds stupid, they need to make you pick the 4 people you want to buff with Ebonite before the pull, and you can never change it. And when you press Presence, when you press Ebonite, it just like goes on those people or something. Like, because as long as you can optimize it to the exact 4 people who are doing the most damage at any point in the fight, the difference between who they're actually making AUG for at a base level and the difference between people who are doing the really OP shit is it's always going to be super OP and has to be brought over everything else in the game. And if they ever nerf that and keep it the same way, then it'll be bad for the everyman who AUG is supposed to be good for. So I definitely think they need to nerf the way you can optimize it in raid. It'd make it so much easier to balance. At least one thing they did do is they nerfed the defensiveness of AUG in the War Within, which is definitely, I mean, that is the most oppressive part of augmentation, right? Like the fact that they're giving your group extra defensives. Like I think that is the most oppressive part of AUG, and they've nerfed that. So like pretty significantly too. So at least that's good. What does an AUG still give you in a group, right? If you're an AUG, what do you bring defensively to your party that like devastation doesn't bring? You bring like tank armor. You bring healer main stat, healer and tank main stat. You bring cheat. Well, other classes have cheat. Oh, you give verse, yeah. How much is the verse? It's based on mastery? Okay, well, okay, they give verse. But the thing where like what was it called? Like Essence of the Black Scales or something. Whenever you pressed Obsidian Scales, you used to give people like how much extra HP your party? Like, was it 16% at the very beginning of them being made? And then it was nerfed to, I think, is it 4% to 8% now? But I think they nerfed it from that. I want to say it's some shit like 2% to 4% maybe. Is it still 4 to 8%? I'm pretty sure it's 2 to 4. I think you do 2 to 4% health. Which is, I mean, that's absolutely a huge nerf. Like that makes using Obsidian Scales for the group almost irrelevant. It's not nothing, but it's almost nothing. It still exists without, it basically just exists. But I still think you're going to bring it just for these two. If it becomes easier to heal your group with this, I mean, you'll always still bring it. Also, think about how High Mythic Plus is designed in the War Within. High Mythic Plus scales higher per... Dude, I just realized my camera's massive on my screen. That's so funny. I just left it like that. Okay, so you have, in the War Within, keys scale higher than they ever have before. So, like, going from a 13 to a 14 or a 14 to a 15 is just, in the War Within, that's a bigger gap. It's scaling off Tyrannical and Fortified, and then I think on a 12, it also gains an extra 20% scaling that's just flat applied to all of those keys, but that scales, right? And maybe the most important thing is every time you die now in a key in the War Within, you lose 15 seconds from your timer. So deaths are 3 times more punishing for timing your key. And there was already people complaining this expansion that keys didn't feel like you had to do anything crazy. You just had to not die and you timed the key. And that was a dislike. People disliked that. They wish that earlier in keys scaling, it was more about fighting the timer than it is about fighting living or dying. And I mean, that's going to be even more of a problem in the upcoming expansion, right? Like if you ever die, you're fucked. Which maybe is what they're going for, but I just, knowing how people reacted to this expansion, that doesn't sound good. Max, I wouldn't be so against AUG if there was any competition in the support DPS role. See, that's something that I don't understand that argument. People were like, AUG isn't the problem. The problem is there aren't more AUGs. But that sounds not right. Like, I feel like adding more support is not the answer. Like, if AUG wasn't taking one group spot, but instead it was just another support always taking 1 out of 5 group spots, wouldn't it be the same thing? Like, who cares? I don't know. If AUG wasn't mandatory to a group, it could be fine. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The issue isn't AUG or support. The issue is X-Spec being good for Mythic Plus for the last year and for the foreseeable future. That doesn't necessarily have to be a support thing. You can be a support class and not have them be required, right? It's just a tuning thing. Who knows? Everyone, this is what I'm talking about. If they gave you a week at Blizzard, you'd try to do something that would just have a huge negative effect on the game. Like, what a lot of you would say is I would go into Blizzard as a designer and I would just delete AUG. And I think that would have the most catastrophically negative effect at Blizzard. Like, it would make you and your friends in Twitch chat happy, and I think that Blizzard would be in absolute disarray. Nah, I'd win. True. What is it? The whole point of having a week at Blizzard is that you don't care about the negative effects because you're gone after a week. So it's more of an agent of chaos. If you have a week at Blizzard, how much fucking destruction can you cause that you won't have to deal with? It's kind of like going into those rage rooms. You guys heard of that? Maybe this is a deeply American thing. I've never been to one, but apparently there's these places that you can rent out and you go in there and you can just like fucking break shit. You just break like fucking lamps and TVs and computers and you fucking smash it all with like baseball bats. By the way, has anyone ever done that? Is it like really cathartic? Like, does it like help you get a lot of anger or something? I don't really understand how that would work, but therapeutic. All right, someone in my chat just said I just smashed my meat. And that's how I know it's time to end my stream, guys. It's been real. Won't be live tomorrow, I don't think, but maybe the day after that.